FC. I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima. My name is Brenda, and I'll be your net control for this session of the BARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time using the pro sign, break, break, and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me, as stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmission. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to W5FC.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, space exploration and space history, What's Up, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week, Space Launches of the Week, and recent astronomical discoveries and visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Time permitting, we'll have the astronomical Q&A and the 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. So we will start with low power and short time check-ins Please give us your call sign phonetically, your name, and your QTH. Please come now. None heard. We'll move on to general check-ins. Please come now.
Golf 5, Papa, Mike, and Richardson.
This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, Tom, Louisville.
This is KF5, JHA, Chaz, Planet Earth, or more specifically, Mesquite, Texas. Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo, Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch.
Kilo 5, Alpha, November, Papa, Allen in Dallas.
Kilo Alpha 6, Echo Tango Sierra, Phil, Mesquite.
Kilo India 5, Golf Echo Delta, Randy, where I live.
ACX, Tom, KF5JHA, Chaz, KF5ZBL, Bill, K5ANP, Allen, and KA6ATS, Phil. Additional check-ins, please come now.
Kilo India 5, Golf Echo Delta, Randy, where I live.
Whiskey Alpha 5, Papa Charlie Romeo, Larry in Arlington, no traffic.
All right, I'm going to need one fill in there. We have KF5, Golf Alpha Delta, Randy, and James, I missed your call. Would you please come back with it?
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima.
All right, Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima. We have WT5 9V, Michael, and WA5 PCR Larry. Let's pick up some Echolink check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey at J, near Weatherford.
This is Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly, tonight in Lake Jackson, Texas.
This is Kilo India 5, Bravo November Papa, Louis in forward.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma.
K5BZWJ, K5KTX Kelly. I don't think that's right. I think it's just K5KTX. KI5BNP Lewis, and John, I'm sorry, I missed your prefix. I think it's K5JDW, John. All right, anybody else from any mode, please come now.
Hello, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Pearl and Dallas.
All right, KF5TSK Pearl. Welcome to the net, everybody. So let's get started. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? This could be ham, astronomical space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now.
KG5B.
KG5P. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. This weekend, actually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is going to be the Boy Scouts, the annual Boy Scouts of America Jamboree on the air, where there'll be amateur radio stations set up throughout the country, or for the world for that matter, and the idea is to introduce Boy Scouts to amateur radio and possibly talk to scouts in other parts of the country or even possibly the world. Okay, this year we're going to have a group in Dallas. It's going to be at the Westminster Presbyterian Church, in their parking lot. And this is located just west of the tollway on Devonshire, which is south of Northwest Highway and a little bit north of Lover's Lane. And I'll be setting up there and a couple of the other RWK club members, and we hope to get a bunch of scouts to show up. And so if you do have a group of scouts that would be interested in ham radio, or any kids for that matter, bring them by. That'll be this Saturday, and we'll probably get started around 9 o'clock. KG5P.
Other announcements. AMSET Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central, you'll need Echolink installed and be registered. You can find that under Groups and AMSET. Also, a live audio link is available on their website, which is amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston. Dallas AMSET.net, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.14 megahertz, PL 110.9, positive offset. All right, this is not our only net for the evening. At 10:30, approximately, when this net is over, we have something we call the Afterglow, which is a movie discussion net. Every week we pick a different movie and we watch it during the week and then we discuss it. I'm going to call on Tom, KE5ICX, to give us his usual on-point synopsis of this movie. Go ahead, Tom.
Why, thank you, Brenda, and I do have an announcement immediately after my incredibly accurate synopsis of tonight's movie. So here we go. The Galliot and Argos approached the fog-encased world. The Argos began its approach while the Galliot watched from above. Then, over the intercom, the Argos captain, Mark Markery, makes his announcement upon landing. That's one small step for me, one giant leap for the guy I pushed off the ladder. The Galliot crew, not known for their intellectual fortitude, did know that couldn't be what the captain was supposed to say. When their ship finally lands nearby, they find Argos' entire crew crumpled and strewn around the base of Argos' landing ladder, with Markery nowhere to be found. So join us in the next Afterglow movie, Planet of the Vampires, from 1965 at 10:30 p.m. By the way, if you've seen this movie, it will look very similar to another film that celebrates its 40th anniversary this week, Alien. Also, I want to make another announcement. That is, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club will have its yearly TechNet on the Hill. That's coming up this coming Saturday at, I think it's from 2 until 9 p.m., so it'll be all afternoon. Go to the w5fc.org website. We have presentations galore. We even have hot dogs available sometime during the net. So if you're interested in amateur radio or DARC or both, or you just happen to like Flagpole Hill, come on by on this coming Saturday from, I think it's 2 to 5. I hope that's right. Double check the website, make sure. That is from 2 until 9 p.m. So come on by. This is KE5ICX. Back to net control.
Thank you, Tom. Next up, news of the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. I'm going to call on Chaz, KF5JHA, to see if he has any information.
Brenda, good evening, Nat. This is KF5JHA. Chaz, and the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas has meetings on the fourth Friday of each month. Well, that's January through October. In November, it's the third Friday usually because of Thanksgiving. And in December, we usually have some sort of holiday event, and that happens somewhere in the month. So, where does it happen? It happens at the UTD campus on Campbell Road in the Science Learning Center at 7:30. But we usually have some sort of activity at 7 o'clock. So on the fourth Friday at UTD campus at 7:30. We also have observing somewhere in the Metroplex on Saturday nights, this being a Saturday night. So on the first Saturday night of each month, we have the Stargazer Star Party at Spring Park in Garland. The next time that happens is going to be November the 2nd. The Frisco Starfest is at the Frisco Commons Park, and that is happening right now, Saturday, October the 12th. Is there anyone out there at the Frisco Starfest at the Ham that would like to report in what's going on there right now? Come now with your call sign. Answer is no. The next Star Party is on the third Saturday of each month. That would be the Cedar Hill Star Bolt on J.W. Williams Park, and that is on Saturday, October the 19th. Stars on the Rock is the Shores Park in Rockwall on October the 26th. That would be the fourth Saturday of each month. So that's a listing of information about the Texas Astronomical Society. There's going to be a special program on Saturday, October the 26th, at the dark site for the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. That's going to be called the Ghost Hunt. And I'll talk more about that with my segment later on. Is there any questions about what's going on with TASS? Come now with your call sign if you have any questions or need any fills. So, Brenda, it's back to you. KF5, JHA.
Thank you, Chaz. Next, we usually do something about the National Space Society. N5BB usually does that, but he is not here tonight. And I'm sorry, I can't rustle up the information really fast, but I do know that tomorrow there's a lecture at 3:30 on moon rocks. I don't know the guy's name, but I think he's at UTD. You should be able to go online and find something about it if you're really interested. The talk is at 3:30 and the business meeting is after that. I think I'm going to go because I'm a big fan of moon rocks. And next year they're having the International Space Development Conference here in the Dallas area. So stay tuned for that. It's a fabulous event. People come from all over the world, astronauts and scientists and authors and all kinds of interesting people that you can meet and hear speak. So we'll keep you up on that as the year goes on. Doing check-ins, please come now.
KF5THB via Echo Link. Net.
In case you've been under a rock, it is coming. We just don't know when it's going to be. It is starting now. We're having a lot of days that are sunspot free, but you never know when you bottom out until the other end and you look back. Your rear view mirror, like in 2008, they thought they had reached the sunspot minimum, and then 2009 was even a quieter sun, so you just don't know. Sometimes you have double dips or double peaks, so we'll see. High up in the clear blue noontime sky, the sun appears to be much the same day in, day out, year after year. But astronomers have long known this is not true. The sun does change. Properly filtered telescopes reveal a fiery disk, often speckled with dark sunspots. Sunspots are strongly magnetized and they crackle with solar flares, magnetic explosions that illuminate Earth with flashes of X-rays and extreme ultraviolet radiation. The sun is a seething mass of activity until it's not. Every 11 years or so, sunspots fade away, bringing a period of relative calm. This is called solar minimum, says Dean Pesnell of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, and it's a regular part of the sunspot cycle. The sun is heading toward a solar minimum now. Sunspot counts were relatively high in 2014, and now they're sliding to a low point expected in 2019 to 2020. While intense activities such as sunspots and solar flares subside during solar minimum, that doesn't mean the sun becomes dull. Solar activity simply changes form. For instance, says Pesnell, during solar minimum, we can see the development of long-lived coronal holes. Coronal holes are vast regions of the sun's atmosphere where the sun's magnetic field opens up and allows streams of solar particles to escape the sun as the fast solar wind. Pesnell says, we see these holes throughout the solar cycle, but during solar minimum, they can last for a long time, 6 months or more. Streams of solar wind flowing from coronal holes can cause space weather effects near Earth when they hit Earth's magnetic field. These effects include temporary disturbances of the Earth's magnetosphere, called geomagnetic storms, auroras, and disruptions to communications and navigation systems. During solar minimum, the effects of Earth's upper atmosphere on satellites in low Earth orbit changes too. Normally, Earth's upper atmosphere is heated and puffed up by ultraviolet radiation from the sun. Satellites in low Earth orbit experience friction as they skim through the outskirts of our atmosphere. This friction creates drag, causing satellites to lose speed over time and eventually fall back to Earth. Drag is a good thing for space junk, natural and man-made particles floating in orbit around Earth. Drag helps keep low Earth orbit clear of debris. But during solar minimum, this natural heating mechanism subsides. Earth's upper atmosphere cools and to some degree can collapse. Without a normal amount of drag, space junk tends to hang around. There are unique space weather effects that get stronger during solar minimum. For example, the number of galactic cosmic rays that reach Earth's upper atmosphere increases during solar minimum. Galactic cosmic rays are high-energy particles accelerated toward the solar system by distant supernova explosions and other violent events in the galaxy. Pesnell says that during solar minimum, the sun's magnetic field weakens and provides less shielding from these cosmic rays. This can pose an increased threat to astronauts traveling through space. Solar minimum brings about many changes to our sun, but less solar activity doesn't make the sun and our space environment any less interesting. A long stretch of minimal solar activity in 2008 and early 2009 prompted some questions about whether the sun's quiescence was beginning to rival that of the Maunder minimum in the late 17th and early 18th centuries. Of the 2008 minimum, solar physicist David Hathaway of the NASA Marshall Space Flight Center says it's definitely been an exceptional minimum, but only compared to the past 50 years. Studying human observations of the sun extending back 4 centuries, he continues, if we go back 100 years, we see that the 1913 minimum was at least as long and as deep as this one. So although the minimal activity of the sun in 2008 and 9 is exceptional for the modern era, it does not yet rival the lowest levels of solar activity that have ever been observed. Scientists are predicting that this is going to be a very extended or very low minimum, but we don't know yet. They're even thinking that we may have a series of cycles of low minimums. Perhaps not as bad as a Maunder minimum, but something along those lines. Centuries of observations have shown that the number of sunspots waxes and wanes over a roughly 11-year period. Sunspots exhibit other predictable behavior. If you map the location of the spots on the sun's surface over the course of a solar cycle, the pattern they make is shaped like a butterfly. The reason for the butterfly pattern is that the first sunspots of each new solar cycle occur mostly at the sun's mid-latitudes, but as the solar cycle progresses, the area of maximum sunspot production shifts toward the solar equator. Since regular sunspot observations began, astronomers have documented 24 cycles of sunspot activity. The images acquired in July 2000 showed the sun near the peak of solar cycle 23. That cycle waned in late 2007 and solar cycle 24 began in early 2008, but showed minimal activity through early 2009. The small changes in solar radiance that occur during the solar cycle and exert a small influence on Earth's climate, with periods of intense magnetic activity, the solar maximum, producing slightly higher temperatures, and solar minimum periods, such as that seen in 2008 and early 2009, likely to have the opposite effect. Periods of intense magnetic activity on the sun can spawn severe space weather that damages infrastructure of our high-tech society. We have a spacecraft, SOHO, S-O-H-O, and 1 million miles away from Earth. It sits between the Earth and the Sun and gives us an unobstructed view of our nearest star. All right, do we have any more check-ins? Scratchy, could you please come again with that message?
Hey, this is KG5B. I switched radios. So when you started your presentation, you doubled with some people that were checking in. So I think you missed a couple. KG5B.
All right, if anybody didn't hear their name announced, would you please come now with your call and your name?
Joe in Arlington.
Please come again, somebody in Arlington. Well, nothing heard, but we have also added on Echolink KG5G, ZMG on Echolink. I'm sorry, it looks like KG5ZMG is named Joe. My apologies. Next up. All right, Kelly, K5KTX, will give her report on NASA. Go ahead, Kelly.
All right, good evening, everyone, and you'll have to bear with me for just a minute. My computer has decided to lock up on me, and I can't open my window, so give me just a second. Okay, so I'm going to have to try something a little bit different here, so just a second. All right, so in the news this week with NASA, NASA is gearing up for a marathon of spacewalks, and one of them could be the first spacewalk to be conducted entirely by women. The two women currently at the International Space Station, NASA astronauts Christina Cook and Jessica Meir, are scheduled to take a spacewalk together on October the 21st. It will be the fourth in a series of 10 spacewalks scheduled to take place during the next 3 months. And it will be the first time that two women do a spacewalk together. Although astronauts and cosmonauts have completed more than 200 spacewalks for the construction and maintenance of the International Space Station, only 15 women have ever been on a spacewalk, and they have always been accompanied by men. NASA had originally planned to have the first all-female spacewalk in March, but that plan fell apart due to a lack of properly fitted spacesuits. For the spacewalk in March, Cook was slated to head out with her fellow astronaut Anne McClain. Both women needed a size medium hard upper torso, or HUT, the part of the spacesuit shaped like a T-shirt. However, only one was readily available at the space station. Mir also requires a medium HUT for her spacesuit, but that won't be a problem this time around because NASA has had plenty of time to prep another medium suit since March. For the first 5 of the 10 spacewalks coming up, the Expedition 61 astronauts will be swapping out old batteries on the station's solar panels, work that has been ongoing in a series of spacewalks that began in 2017. The next 5 spacewalks will focus on repairs to the space station's alpha magnetic spectrometer and ailing dark matter experiment. Each of those spacewalks is expected to last about 6.5 hours. By the way, Christina Cook is slated to make another record-breaking achievement as she will complete the longest single spaceflight by a woman with 328 days in space before she returns to Earth in February 2020. And then in sad news this week, Soviet-era cosmonaut Alexei Leonov, who in 1965 became the first person to walk in space before co-leading the first joint mission between Russia and the United States, has died at the age of 85. Leonov died on Friday, yesterday, at the Burdenko Military Hospital in Moscow after a long illness. Selected alongside Yuri Gagarin among the first 20 Soviet Air Force pilots to train as cosmonauts in 1960, Leonov flew twice into space, logging a total of 7 days and 32 minutes off the planet. Launched on Voskhod 2, the world's 17th human spaceflight on March 18, 1965, Leonov made history as the first person to exit his spacecraft for an extravehicular activity, or EVA. "The Earth is round," he exclaimed as he caught his first view of the world. "Stars were to my left, right, above, and below me. The light of the sun was very intense, and I felt its warmth on the part of my face that was not protected by a filter," said Leonov in a 2015 interview. "What remained etched in my memory was the extraordinary silence," he said. Leonov's historic EVA, however, almost spelled his end. After several minutes outside, his spacesuit ballooned, making it very difficult for him to maneuver. His crewmate, Pavel Belyaev, unable to do anything to assist, Leonov made the decision to release air from his suit in order to be able to re-enter his capsule. Ultimately, Leonov made it safely back inside after 12 minutes and 9 seconds floating outside his spacecraft. He and Belyaev returned to Earth the next day on March 19, 1965, having shown it was possible for a human to survive working in the vacuum of space. Leonov's second spaceflight came a decade later with the liftoff of the Apollo-Soyuz Test Project, or ASTP, the first mission conducted jointly between the United States and Russia. Launched on July 15, 1975, Leonov and his crewmate, Valery Kubasov, docked their Soyuz spacecraft 2 days later to an Apollo spacecraft carrying astronauts Thomas Stafford, Deke Slayton, and Vance Brand. "The best part of our joint flight was the occasion when we opened the hatch and I saw the face of Tom Stafford," said Leonov, recalling the ASTP mission on its 35th anniversary in 2010. "I said, 'Hello, Tom. Hello, Deke,' and at this moment we shook hands." The two crews spent almost 2 days together conducting scientific experiments and taking part in cultural exchanges. The mission served as a precursor to the later shuttle Mir flights and the establishment of the International Space Station. After parting ways with the Americans, Leonov and Kubasov landed safely on July 21, 1975. The touchdown marked the end of Leonov's spaceflight career, having completed 113 orbits of Earth on his 2 missions. Alexei Archipovich Leonov was born on May 30, 1934, in the town of Listvonka near Marinsk in Siberia. A budding artist from a young age, Leonov enrolled at the Academy of Arts in Riga in 1953 before attending the Cheguyev Air Force School in Kharkov, Ukraine, where he graduated in 1957. He was serving as a Soviet Air Force parachute instructor when he was selected for the first cosmonaut class 3 years later. His first assignment was as backup to Valery Bakovsky on the Vostok 5 mission in 1963. After returning from his 1965 Voskhod 2 mission, Leonov began training for a mission to the moon. First preparing for a circumlunar flight, a feat accomplished by NASA's Apollo 8 crew in December 1968, Leonov was one of only 3 candidates for a Soviet moon landing. Rocket failures, though, ultimately led to the program's cancellation. Leonov was then assigned to command the second mission to launch to Russia's first space station, Salyut-1. One of his 2 Soyuz-11 crewmates, however, fell ill days before the June 1971 launch, resulting in their backups flying in their place. The Soyuz 11 mission later ended in tragedy when a depressurization during reentry led to all 3 cosmonauts being killed. Following his lead of the Soviet side of the Apollo-Soyuz test project, Leonov headed the cosmonaut team until January 1982, when he resigned to become the deputy director of the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City. 10 years later, he left the space program for a management position at Alpha Bank, one of the largest private commercial banks in Russia. Throughout his career, Leonov continued to pursue his passion for art, flying colored pencils on his space flights, and becoming the first to sketch in Earth orbit. His subsequent drawings and paintings have been exhibited worldwide, appearing on postage stamps, and were published in several collected volumes of his work. For his service to his nation, Leonov was twice named a hero of the Soviet Union and awarded the Order of Lenin, among many other honors. A founding member of the Association of Space Explorers, Leonov was inducted into the International Space Hall of Fame at the New Mexico Museum of Space History in 1976 and International Air and Space Hall of Fame at the San Diego Air and Space Museum in 2001. Leonov was further honored as the namesake for a crater on the moon and a spaceship in Arthur C. Clarke's 2010 Odyssey 2. In 2017, he was portrayed in the Russian feature film The Age of Pioneers, also known as Spacewalk, about his Voskhod 2 mission. In 2004, Leonov co-authored the joint autobiography, Two Sides of the Moon, Our Story of the Cold War Space Race, with Apollo 15 moonwalker David Scott. And in a couple of other items in space history this week, October the 7th, way back in 1906, was the birth of NASA Administrator James Webb. An impassioned and hardworking leader, Webb oversaw many of NASA's early human spaceflight missions. It was under his direction that the agency undertook the task of landing a man on the moon before the end of the decade. As NASA's second administrator, he enhanced the role of science and research in the space program. Webb was a World War II Marine Corps veteran and an experienced public servant. He tirelessly advocated for the mission to the moon in both the halls of government and the court of public opinion. NASA could have never become what it is today without the direction and foresight of James Webb. And of course, the next big telescope is named in his honor. And then finally, on October the 10th, 1846, English astronomer William Lassell pointed the telescope he had purchased using his beer brewing fortune toward the newly discovered planet of Neptune. What he discovered would prove to be one of the solar system's most unique satellites, the largest of Neptune's 14 moons, Triton. And that's all I've got tonight. This is K5KTX. Back to the nets.
Thanks, Kelly. Do we have any more check-ins? Please come now.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WV4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power.
Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Kilo Mike 6, Alpha Victor Whiskey, Brett in Highland, California.
All right, I'm going to need a couple of fills. I got WB4MFI Ted, and Patrick, I missed your, I got KG5. What else is the rest of your call?
Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima.
All right, KG5 Alpha Papa Lima. Patrick, welcome. Then we have Brett all the way in California, KM6AVW. Welcome to the net. Moving on, we're going to What's Up with Chaz, KF5JHA. Go ahead, Chaz.
No, good evening, everyone. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I work at Brookhaven Community College. This is a segment we call of Skynet What's Up. Remember that Skynet's not only available to the Dallas repeater and 146.88 megahertz with a private line tone of 110.9, but also available to hams across the world via Echolink. And most weeks, Skynet also has a video component too. You can find the video links on the w5fc.org website. So, with radio, Echolink, video, I say Skynet's in 3D. Now, Tony, NT5TM, says we are in 4D because we use the dimension of time. By the way, what goes on in the chat window of Echolink and what is being done on the video may not have anything to do with what we're talking about on the air. So, to get the full 3D, or rather 4D version of Skynet, you must be monitoring all three areas at the same time. Last weekend I was not on Skynet because it was at Palo Pinto Mountain State Park Star Party near Strawn, Texas. It was clear at sunset. I was able to use my new 16-inch Dobsonian for the first time. The skies clouded up around 1:30 just after moonset, so no real dark observing was done, but I did see, while the sun was still up, some old friends, M13, M57, M27, M42, M31, 32, 110. That was all on the same field of view. And a double cluster, just to name a few. I also looked at Saturn and saw several moons, including Titan. I didn't look up determine what the other moons that I saw were. I did have the best chicken fried steak in the state of Texas for lunch on Sunday at Mary's Cafe before leaving Strawn, Texas. It was really good. You could say that I staked my claim in West Texas. Weeks, the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas will be hosting a ghost hunt at their Oklahoma dark site. It's similar to what we call the Messier Marathon that happens in the spring of the year. We're going to be looking for a lot of faint, fuzzy things during that period of time. So as long as the weather is good, I plan to be there hunting for faint, fuzzy objects with my 16-inch Dob. The organizer calls them ghosts, but they're really faint, fuzzy things. I'm not sure if I'll be able to be on Skynet at even, but I'll try. So, the commercial, a little Dob will do you, is not what I'll be saying. That's a commercial that's been off the air for a long time. And I think I'm misspeaking a little bit. I haven't talked about this in a while, but we have a close encounter of the asteroid kind just a week ago on October the 5th, traveling at 12.7 kilometers a second with a distance of only 115,000 kilometers. That's pretty close. Asteroid 2019 TN5 was only 7 meters in size, but would have made a great display in our skies had it directly encountered the Earth. You can daily find out about these close calls on the website spaceweather.com. And once again, I am KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. I'm not sure what Mike may have covered last week about the evening sky, because I wasn't here. But 2 weeks ago, I talked about the summer triangle being directly overhead, just after sunset. Let's take a look at more of the sky. Jupiter is getting lower and lower in the southwestern sky in the evening. In a few weeks, Venus will be easily seen in the western evening sky. I did catch a glimpse of Venus during strong twilight around 7:30 a few days ago. Saturn is about 1/4 of the way up in the southwestern sky, and is a real treat to observe through a telescope. just like I'd mentioned earlier. Really fascinating right now is the Milky Way. It runs through Sagittarius, where Saturn is located, through Scutum and onto Aquila, where Spica is located, part of the Summer Triangle. Then the Milky Way continues directly overhead through Cygnus, where we find another part of the Summer Triangle, Deneb. Then the Milky Way touches Cepheus and then continues on the Cassiopeia. Then finally the Milky Way ends its arc across the sky in Perseus. So this time of year, the Milky Way goes from the southwestern horizon directly overhead into the northeastern horizon. So try to get away from city lights in the next couple of weeks to enjoy the brightest part of the Milky Way stretching across the entire sky. There's a story from long ago about a king, Cepheus, and a queen, Cassiopeia, and their beautiful daughter, Andromeda. Cassiopeia bragged that her daughter, Andromeda, was more beautiful than even the sea nymph. But the god of the sea didn't like that statement, so he sent a sea monster, Cetus, to ravage the coast of their country. Consulting an oracle, the king and the queen, Cepheus and Cassiopeia, found that the only way to get rid of the sea monster was to chain their daughter Andromeda to a rock and let the sea monster, Cetus, kill her. Well, they didn't want to do that, but after a few more seacoast villages were ransacked by Cetus, they had no choice. So Andromeda was chained to the rock by the edge of the sea. The sea monster was just about to kill her when our hero, Perseus, flying on a winged horse, Pegasus, swoops down and kills the sea monster and saves Andromeda. All of these characters are constellations in our current evening sky. You can see back then there were no football games and TVs and cell phones and movies for entertainment. So they used their imagination in the sky to see the characters of their stories. I bet this story is even better than tonight's movie. Afterglow movie, that is. Cassiopeia can be found by looking for the number 3 looking group of stars just to the right of Polaris, the North Star. The king, Cepheus, is just above Polaris and looks like an upside-down house. The flying horse, Pegasus, is nearly overhead, and its body looks like a square. The northeastern corner of the great square, Pegasus, has 2 lines of stars coming off of it, representing Andromeda. Just below Cassiopeia and Andromeda, you can find our hero, Perseus. To me, Perseus looks like a seal with its nose in the air balancing a ball. Actually, Perseus is balancing 2 star clusters called the double cluster. And Cetus, sort of separated from the rest of the group, is now rising in the east and looks like a whale. Of course, this is a whale of a story. And I am KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Moon will be full tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon. It'll be later tomorrow afternoon. The moon will be at its last quarter on October the 21st, and the moon will be at its new phase on October 27th. We have had 3 minor meteor showers over the last couple of weeks. I haven't seen the reports on those. Another minor meteor shower, the Epsilon Geminids, will be peaking on the night of October 17th and 18th with just a few meteors. But one of our major annual meteor showers, the Orionids, will peak on the night of October the 21st, 22nd, with about 20 to 30 meteors per hour. It might be worth your looking. Now, I'm going to tell you about this event until it occurs, because it is a big deal. And in less than 1 month from now, on Monday, November the 11th, 2019, Veterans Day, we will have the next transit of Mercury visible in North Texas. After November 11th transit of Mercury, the next transit of Mercury won't be visible in North Texas until May the 7th, the year 2049. The Texas Astronomical Society and Brookhaven College are hosting observing of the November 11th, 2019 event, the transit of Mercury, on Brookhaven campus. Texas Astronomical Society will also be having telescopes at UT Dallas campus as well. I will talk about this in more detail next week on Skynet. again, don't forget about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas has telescopes set up somewhere in the Metroplex almost every Saturday night. Check the website, texasastro.org for details. Now, tonight is supposed to be at Frisco Common Star Park. I guess it happened because the weather is really fantastic. Once again, if there's anybody at Frisco that wants to report in about what's going on there for the Star Party, please come now with your call sign. Before I end, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? You might have a general astronomy question. I might not know everything, but I might know the answer to your question. I'm laughing because I'm reading some of this stuff on EchoLink right now. It's funny. Okay. If you have a question, come now with your call sign.
KG5P.
Mike, for not letting me down, please come now with your question. I'll see if I can give you an answer.
Okay, Chaz. Well, I've got a straight question this time. I had my list of puns got shuffled off somewhere. Okay, you went to Palo Pinto State Park. Is that open to the public now, or was this a special event that you went to? It didn't appear that, if you look on the website, it doesn't appear that it's open. So that was my question. KG5P.
That is a great question, Mike. Actually, they've had the land for about, I think it's been 4 or 5 years now, and they only have special events. The very first special event was a Star Party way back when. So that's all that they have. They just got state funding this last legislative session, but it's not enough to complete the park. But they're going to start progress on groundbreaking of some of the infrastructure sometime this coming summer. So it'll be a while before it's open to the public. But again, they're going to have at least every 6 months Star Parties. One of the rangers said that they might want to try to do Star Parties every even month. So April, June, August, and October is when they want to do Star Parties. They don't want to do it during the winter months. So it was a special event, and they have some other special events like some birding and some equestrian activities, but Star Parties have been the big thing. Did that answer your question, Mike?
Oh, yes, it did, Chaz. Thank you. And one other question, maybe you know the answer to this, or I know somebody out there does. The 3RF, Three Rivers Foundation site. Now, that's the one up there by Quanah, up there on 287. Now, they were supposed to have reopened that this summer, but as far as I know, that hasn't opened yet either. Does anybody have any information on when that might be opening? That's the 3RF, Three Rivers Foundation site up near Quanah, KG5P.
The gentleman in charge of that was at the task meeting a few months back and said that September was supposed to be the beginning of the opening once again. Now, I have not heard if those events happened or not. Is there anyone out there that knows whether 3RF did open in September? Mike, I guess I'm going to have to check with Jeff Barton. He's the person in charge of 3RF right now, so I will have to check with him later and find out the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to that, but thanks for asking. I do have a question for all of you out there. Why did the skeleton not cross the road? Now, I'm not going to give you a chance to answer it on air. It's because he didn't have the guts. Okay. So as the moon wanes during the last half of October, so do these words. Until next time, keep looking up so you know what's up. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. Back to net control. Brenda, get me out of this. Thanks.
Alrighty. Next up. place in Miss Carolyn's constellation this week, we're going to have Mike, KG5P. And if you give your report, please, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Well, my topic tonight and also next week, this is the first of two parts, is Jovian moons, specifically talking about Europa, but there's 4 Jovian moons, as you know, and these can be seen with small telescopes, maybe even good binoculars. We have Ganymede, Io, Europa, and Callisto, and 2 of those, Ganymede and Europa, and plus a 5th moon, Enceladus, are believed to have water below the surface. In other words, there's a huge ocean. You have a solid surface, but a huge ocean underneath. So there's been a number of articles recently in the popular media, specifically space.com and nasa.gov, where they actually believe that there are these huge oceans, containing, some cases containing more water than we have on the Earth. Now, after reading these, I also came across some stuff by Michio Kaku, who's one of my favorite writers, and I've talked about Michio Kaku's stuff before, but he wrote about what life might be like, specifically intelligent life, and what they might be dealing with if they lived in such an environment. So tonight I want to talk about Europa specifically, and why we think there's water below the surface, and then next week I'd like to talk about what kind of critters may live down there, other than just a bunch of them swimming around and eating each other. So what makes us think there's an ocean between Europa's icy crust? Okay, and again, that's one of the 4 large Jovian satellites, the others being Io, Ganymede, and Callisto. And these were discovered by Galileo in 1610. But it took 400 years before any detailed views of the surfaces were seen, and the uniqueness of these Galilean moons was revealed. In the 1960s, ground-based telescope observations determined that Europa's surface composition is mostly water ice, as are most other solid bodies in the solar system, or the outer solar system, I should say. Okay, Pioneer 10 and 11 spacecraft flew by Jupiter in the early 1970s, but the first spacecraft to image the surfaces of Jupiter's moons in any significant detail was Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, which Tom would known as Voyager 1's closest approach to Jupiter occurred in March 79, and Voyager 2 followed in July of the same year. The best imaging resolution of these Voyagers was limited to just over 1 mile per pixel, and pixels are pretty small, as you know, but still, that's not terribly good resolution, but it's certainly better than in the Earth-bound images. These images revealed a surface brighter than that of the Earth's moon, crisscrossed with numerous bands and ridges, and a surprising lack of large impact craters, tall cliffs, or mountains. In other words, a very smooth surface relative to the other icy moons. Okay, now even though the Voyagers did not pass extremely close to Europa, their images were of high quality enough so that researchers could see some of the dark bands, and that they had opposite sides that matched each other extremely well, like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. These cracks and separated and dark icy material appeared to have flowed into the open gaps, suggesting that the surface had been active at some time in the past. The Voyager images also showed only a handful of impact craters, which are expected to build up over time as the planetary surface is constantly bombarded by meteorites over billions of years until the surface is covered in craters. However, this is not the case. Thus, a lack of large impact craters suggests that that the moon's surface was relatively young, and this also implied that something else had erased them, such as icy volcanic flows or settling of the icy crust under its own weight. Scientists also found that the patterns of some of the longest linear fractures on the surface did not fit predicted patterns of fractures that would be created by tides as Europa orbits Jupiter. They determined that the patterns would fit very well if Europa's surface could move independently and was not locked to the rest of the interior, as would be the case if a layer of liquid or slightly warmer ice existed between the crust and the deep interior. Also, tantalizing hints that perhaps Europa had a warm interior at some time in the past, and perhaps it still does. Studies of how tidal heating should affect Europa suggested that a global subsurface ocean might exist within the icy moon today. Okay, these intriguing findings led to a strong sense of anticipation for the Galileo mission, which launched in 1989 and entered orbit around Jupiter in 1995. Galileo's primary mission included observations of the 4 Galilean satellites during repeated flybys. The information about Europa and Galileo sent back was so intriguing that the mission was actually extended to make a total of 12 close flybys of the icy moon. Data from the mission included images of Europa and a range of scales revealing new details about the surface and providing context for how these details related to the moon as a whole. Okay, I'm getting close to the end here. As one of the most important measurements made by Galileo mission, it showed how Jupiter's magnetic field was disrupted in the space around Europa. This measurement strongly implied that a special type of magnetic field was being created or induced, as they say, within Europa by a deep layer of some electrically conductive fluid beneath the surface. Based on Europa's icy composition, scientists think that the most likely material to create this magnetic signature is a global ocean of salty water. You know, Tom has an artist look like, but scientists are all but certain that Europa has an ocean underneath its icy surface, but they do not know how thick this ice might be. The artist's concept illustrates 2 possible cutaway views through Europa's ice shell. In both, heat escapes, possibly volcanically, from Europa's rocky mantle and is carried upward by buoyant ocean currents. If the heat from below is intense, and the ice shell is thin, or according to one of these pictures, the ice shell can directly melt, causing what is called chaos on Europa. These are regions of what appear to be broken, rotated, and tilted ice blocks. Okay, on the other hand, if the ice shell is sufficiently thick, the photo on the right, or the picture on the right, the less intense interior heat will be transferred to the warmer water at the bottom of the shell, and additional heat is generated by tidal squeezing of the warmer ice. This warmer ice will slowly rise and flowing as glaciers do on Earth, and this slow but steady motion may also disrupt the extremely cold, brittle ice at the surface. Okay. In closing, we'll say that Europa is no larger than Earth's moon, and its internal heating stems from its eccentric orbit around Jupiter, seen in the distance of this photo, this artist's conception. As tides raised by Jupiter in Europa's ocean rise and fall, they may cause cracking and additional heating, even venting of water vapor into the airless sky above Europa's icy surface. So in addition, the proposed Europa lander mission concept would land on Europa's surface and perform an in situ study of composition and habitability. Future missions will likely to confirm the presence of its ocean. For example, measurements of the amount of flexing due to the tides are one important indicator if the ocean exists, and the tides should deform the surface by about 30 meters or so. If the moon is frozen, however, the tides would stretch the surface by only 1 meter, about 1/10 as much. Also of great interest would be the composition of the reddish material on the surface. Scientists would like to know if this material holds clues to the composition of the ocean or where the material is cycling between the surface and the interior. In addition to Europa, Clipper and other potential missions have been suggested which would tackle the most pressing questions about Europa. The Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, also known as JUICE, So next week I'll talk about some speculation about some life, possibly intelligent, that may live below the surface and what the implications might be. So, in the words of Dr. McCoy, it's life, Jim, but not as we know it. So back to Nat, KG5P.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have any more check-ins at this point?
Kilo Oscar Bravo, Philip from Crandall.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your whole call. Could you repeat it?
Kilo Oscar Bravo, Philip from Crandall.
Okay, I copy Kilo 5, Kilo Oscar Bravo, Philip. Welcome to the net. Our next segment is Space Launches for the Week. On October 17th, the SpaceX Falcon 9 Starlink 1 vehicle is going to launch. A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is expected to launch the second batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX's Starlink broadband network. A mission designated Starlink 1 is going to launch from Cape Canaveral, Florida, and the launch window is to be determined. Bear with me while I try and pull this link up. I apologize, everything's too slow, and it's not going to load very fast. So we will move on to recent astronomical discoveries, and that is my segment. So the title is Astronomers Discovered 20 New Saturnian Moons, and you can help name them. Astronomers using the Subaru telescope in Hawaii have found 20 new moons orbiting Saturn. The discovery brings the total number of known Saturnian moons to 82, surpassing Jupiter, which has 79. To offer the general public a chance to get involved in naming the new moons, the Carnegie Institution for Science launched a contest on October 7th, 2019. Using some of the largest telescopes in the world, we're now completing the inventory of small moons around the giant planets, said team leader Dr. Scott Shepard, an astronomer with the Carnegie Institution. They play a crucial role in helping us determine how our solar system's planets formed and evolved. Each of the newly discovered Saturnian moons is about 3 miles in diameter. 17 of them orbit the ringed planet backwards. They're in a retrograde direction, meaning their movement is opposite of the planet's rotation and its axis. The other 3 moons orbit in the prograde, the same direction as Saturn rotates. 2. The prograde moons are closer to the planet and take about 2 years to travel once around it. The more distant retrograde moons and one of the prograde moons each take more than 3 years to complete an orbit. Studying the orbits of these moons can reveal their origins as well as information about the conditions surrounding Saturn at the time of its formation, Dr. Shepard said. The outer moons of Saturn appear to be grouped into 3 different clusters in terms of the inclinations of the angles at which they're orbiting around the planet. 2 of the newly discovered prograde moons fit into a group of outer moons with inclinations of about 46 degrees and are called the Inuit group, as they are named after Inuit mythology. These moons may have once comprised a larger moon that was broken apart in the distant past. Likewise, the new retrograde moons have similar inclinations to other previously known retrograde Saturnian moons, indicating they are also like fragments from a once larger parent moon that was broken apart. These retrograde moons are in the Norse group, with names coming from Norse mythology. One of the newly discovered retrograde moons is the furthest known moon around Saturn. This kind of grouping of outer moons is also seen around Jupiter, indicating violent collisions occur between moons of the Saturnian system or with outside objects such as passing asteroids or comets, Dr. Shepard noted. The other newfound prograde moon has an inclination near 36 degrees, which is similar to the other known grouping of inner prograde moons around Saturn called the Gallic group. But this new moon, dubbed 2004 S24, orbits much further away from Saturn than any of the other prograde moons, indicating it may have been pulled outwards over time or may not be associated with a more inner grouping of prograde moons. If a significant amount of gas or dust were present when a larger moon broke apart and created these clusters of smaller moon fragments, there would have been strong frictional interactions between the smaller moons and the gas and dust, causing them to spiral into the planet. In the solar system's youth, the sun was surrounded by a rotating disk of gas and dust from which the planets were born, Dr. Shepard said. It is believed that a similar gas and dust disk surrounded Saturn during its formation. The fact that these newly discovered moons were able to continue orbiting Saturn after their parent moons broke apart indicates that these collisions occurred after the planet formation process was mostly complete and the disks were no longer a factor. All right, we have a new check-in, which is KC5MPO, and that's Jamie. Welcome to the net, Jamie. Do we have anybody else that wants to check in? ZL. The next segment is visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. KE5ICX. Do you want to read about this for us?
Yeah, I can do that, exactly. Let's see here. We have not a lot of passes, but a few. The Envisat, which is a polar orbit satellite, has a few things, has a few good passes, north to south or south to north. This comes from heavens-above. You can go to their website, plug in your longitude and latitude, and you get that information. I'm also streaming it up here too, so you can see that part. Let's see, we have October 14th pass. This one is, let's see here, 2.9 magnitude at 7:31 p.m. out of the south-southeast. It reaches its highest point at 1936 local time at 73 degrees, and then it falls east-northeast at 1941. You see here what that looks like. Got the hot link, and of course this one south to north heads through Aquarius. Everything goes through Aquarius. Cygnus through Ursa Minor, and then heads due north close to Ursa Major. On October 16th, the same satellite has 3.6 magnitude. It's at 1956 local time, or 7:56 our time. Reaches its highest position at 20:01 at 60 degrees, and then falls to the north-northwest at 20:07. So another one of those south to north now. October 19th, there's two passes. The best one is at 19:45. The first one's at 7 a.m. It's a 3.1 magnitude, 19:45. Out of the south, due south, it reaches its highest point at 1950 at 79 degrees out of the west-southwest, and then falls at 19:55. Let's take a look at that baby. And this one, oh yeah, straight through. Out of the south, goes through Cornucopius, through Aquila, Cygnus, Draco. Everything goes through Draco as well. Ursa Minor, and then passes just to the east of Ursa Major. And then finally, we get a decent pass of the very mysterious OTV-5, or USA 277. That's one of the only winged vehicles, winged re-entry vehicles now in NASA's fleet, or not NASA's fleet, but the Air Force's fleet at this point. This has been in orbit now for over 2 years. OTV-5 is the fifth mission of the long-duration winged spacecraft unmanned. It has a favorable pass on October 21st. It'll be out of the north-northwest at 29 degrees, reaches its highest point at 6:24 a.m., 55 degrees, and then falls at 6:27. Look at that one. This one arcs through, comes out as shadow. Your Cepheus goes just past Ursa Major, through Leo Minor, and Leo, and then falls through Hydra, around the southeast. So that should be a good pass. It'll be slightly dim, but not so bad. So there you have it. You can get all this information from the heavens above. There's a dash between those two words, heavens and above, so heavens-above.com. As I said, plug in your longitude and latitude information there. That will help you. This also works very well for satellites, amateur satellites, amateur radio satellites, and we use for just about anything. It's also a 3D map for the International Space Station, and some other nifty things. This website continues to grow and become more sophisticated week by week, so do go there and find out all the new features. That's heavens-above.com. And that's it for me. Back to Net Control. This is KE5ICX.
All right, well, it looks like we are just about out of time. So we're going to go ahead and shut this down. Tonight we had 22 hams participating on the air. Thanks to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful Internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. Until next Saturday night, this is WB50ZL, Brenda. I will be closing the net at 10:24 p.m. local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. But wait, there's more. At about 10:30, 5 or 6 minutes from now, please join us for the Afterglow Movie Net. See you then.
This is KE5ICX. We'll give you 10 minutes, because 6 minutes isn't long enough for anything. 10 minutes, come back for Planet of the Vampires. There wasn't a single vampire in this movie, but you can come back and discuss it anyway. So come back in 9 minutes and 28 seconds. KE5ICX.
State. Completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly. Afterglow Movie Net.
And does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the Afterglow movie net? This is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom. Yep, this is my second net for the evening. That's enough. The maximum I ever did was 4 nets in one evening. I'll never do that again. I hate to tell you what happened. I had to call the cops. Okay, this is the Afterglow Movie Net. What are we doing? We're talking about a movie that was assigned this week and everybody watched diligently. Let me tell you about this film before I take check-ins. It's called Planet of the Vampires, or sometimes in Italian, Terrore Espacio, which means terror in space. It is a 1965 Italian space science fiction horror film produced by Fulvio Luciano, directed by Mario Bava, and stars Barry Sullivan and Norma Bangal. Let's see, the screenplay, oh God, so many names with too many vowels, you don't need to know. American International Pictures released the film as a supporting film on the double feature, science fiction double feature, you can hum along too. Daniel Haller's Die Monster Die, that was the A-list film. Everybody remembers that film. The story follows the horrific experiences of the crew members of 2 giant spaceships that have crash-landed on a forbidding, unexplored planet. The disembodied inhabitants of the world possess the bodies of the crew who died during the crash and use the animated corpses to stalk and kill the remaining survivors. The film was co-produced by AIP, an Italian international film, with some financing provided by Spain's Castilla Cooperativa Cinematográfica. IB Melchor and Luis M. Hayward are credited with the script for the AIP English language release version. Years after its release, some critics have suggested that Bava's film was the major influence on Ridley Scott's Alien from 1979, also celebrating its 40th anniversary this coming week, actually starting tomorrow, and Prometheus of 2012, in both narratives, details, and visual designs. I don't disagree. All right, here's the story, such as it is. 2 huge interplanetary ships on an expedition into deep, uncharted space receive a distress signal emanating from an unexplored planet. Both ships, the Galliot and the Argos, attempt to land on the surface of the fog-encased world. While entering the Earth's atmosphere, the crew of the Argos become possessed by an unknown force and try to violently kill each other. Only Captain Mark Curry has the will to resist and is able to force all the others aboard his ship out of his hypnotic, murderous state. After the Argos lands on the surface, the crew disembarks and explores the eerie landscape in search of the Galliot. Thick, pulsating mists, lit by ever-shifting, eerie colors, saturate the terrain. You gotta remember, this is light. When they finally arrive on the other ship, they find the crew members have killed each other. Mark's younger brother, Toby, is among the dead. They proceed to bury as many of the corpses as they can, but several of the bodies are locked inside the ship's bridge. Mark departs to get tools for the opening of the sealed room, but the corpses disappear by the time he returns. Some of the Argos crew are found dead. Tiona sees their corpses walking in the ship and becomes paralyzed with fear. Markery advises the survivors that they must escape from Aura. Unfortunately, the Argos incurs serious damage during the landing, and repairs will take some time. During the waiting period that ensues, several more killings occur. In a private tape recording, Mark admits that he suspects none of them will survive. While exploring Aura, Wes discovers the ruins of the spaceship a few miles from Argos. Markery, Sanya, and Carter investigate inside the ship. They discover large skeletal remains of a long-dead crew, very large, 3 times the size, and thus realize they are not the first tourists who have been drawn to the planet by the distress beacon. Does this plot sound familiar? Marky Mark and Sonia are temporarily trapped inside the ship but manage to escape and return to the Argos. Carter inexplicably vanishes. Last paragraph. Here we go. Two crew members of the Galliot, Tyr and Salus, arrive at the Argos to steal the ship's meteor rejector (TM) device. Tyr escapes with the machine, but Marky Mark fights Salus. Marky Mark tears open Salus' uniform, exploring his putrescent body. I don't know what that word is. He learns that Salus' corpse is being manipulated by an Auran, who reveals that the two ships are lured to the planet in order that the Aurans to escape from their dying world. With the crew of the Galliot under their complete control, they plan to use the ship to escape the humans' home planet. That's possessive humans, home planet. Marky Mark vows to stop them. Marky Mark and his crew rush to the Galliot to retrieve the meteor rejector. They are successful and manage to place explosives in the ship. During a struggle with the Aurans, Dr. Karen and Tiona are killed. Marky Mark and Sanya return to the Argos and manage to escape. Galliot is destroyed. Spoilers ensue. Close your eyes or turn the radio off for about the next minute. After takeoff, however, they reveal themselves to be possessed by the Aurans. They ask Wes, the last survivor, to join them. Wes refuses and tries to sabotage the meteor rejector, but fatefully electrocutes himself while doing so. Oh, every ham does that. Because the device has been broken beyond repair, Marky Mark and Sanya decide to change course for the nearby planet Earth. The end. I've been told putrescent, undergoing the process of decay or rotting. I learned a new word today. Okay, this is KE5ICX. I'll be your net control tonight for the Afterglow Movie Net, which is, what the hell is this movie called? Planet of the Vampires. So I will take check-ins. This is how we do it. Give me your call sign, your name. Let me know where you're transmitting from, and did you see Planet of the Vampires? It doesn't have to be yesterday, it doesn't have to be today, but someday you saw this movie. Planet of the Vampires. Please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, and did you see Planet of the Vampires? Please come now.
Nobody else wants to admit to it. Yes, I saw it. Although, give me a few minutes because I'm still back at the box office trying to get my money back. There were no vampires in this movie. Whiskey Tango Niner Victor, Michael, Plano. Yes.
So, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Burl in Dallas. I did see the movie, and my batteries are discharging.
This Kilo Golf 5, Papa Mike November, James Fort Worth. I saw the movie.
Kilo Mike 6, Alpha Victor Whiskey, Brett in Highland, California. Did not see the movie, but saw some clips on YouTube, and I'm reading the story on IMDb website.
November 5, Hotel Yankee Papa, Tom and Irving. Yes, we saw the movie, and at least I can say it was in color.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay near Weatherford. Yes, I saw it.
Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto. Yes, I saw the movie.
Okie doke, let me go ahead and get these folks checked in. I got WT9 Victor Michael over in Plano. Yeah, he saw it. KFI-TSK Burl, he admits. In Dallas, he saw it. KG5PMN James in Fort Worth. Yep, he saw it. KM5AVW Brent in California. Hey, welcome to the net. Welcome to our night at nets. I know you didn't see it, but you're trying to catch up. You are welcome to make any sort of comments you want. If you've seen the movie Alien, you kind of saw sort of the same thing, only with better special effects and darker. N5HYP, Tom and Irving and Company. Oops, excuse me. N5HYP, Tom and Irving. Yes, he saw the movie with family. KG5BZW, Jay near Weatherford, not in Weatherford. Nobody would ever be in Weatherford on a Saturday night. Yeah, he saw the movie. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda and DeSoto, who did a fantastic net this evening. She also saw the movie. Any additional check-ins? We're talking about, what is this film again? Planet of the Vampires. Anybody see this movie? Or if you didn't, just say you're out there listening and we'll have sympathy for you. Please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. Did you see this fine film? Okay, that's what we're going to do. Here's how this thing works. Most of you know, but in case you've forgotten from the last time, we're going to go ahead and go through the check-ins on various aspects of the film. First part we're going to talk about is, of course, the plot of the film, followed by the characterization, followed by special effects, and then all this depends on how long this all takes, followed by anything you want to say about the film or not about the film or anything else. If you've not seen the film, that's okay. If this sounds vaguely familiar to you, you can go ahead and comment on it. You can even ask questions. We'll probably answer them in a very violent and hateful way because, well, these movies are not always the best in the world. When you're thinking about steel, think about plastic instead. WT9V, Michael, over in Plano, you saw the film. In fact, we were discussing it last night over chat. What did you think about WT9V from KE5ICX?
Thank you, Tom, and good evening, everyone. Like I said, I still want my money back, and I'm looking at you, Brenda, because I didn't see any vampires in this movie. I did see something that looks suspiciously like zombies. But, yeah, there, I said it. Some thoughts as the movie went along. I think this is the best-looking spaceship of all of the Afterglow movies that I've seen so far. It's very aerodynamic, very smooth and nice, and very Italian, I suppose. I had to wonder about the colors that were on those outfits. Also, I haven't seen that much leather in a long time. But I mean, do these people's heads fall off if they don't have those high collars? They do rip them off at some point, but what is this? Who's the style person there? And is the meteor ejector like a deflector? That's something that, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking. It was something from the 60s, and Doctor Who had been out for a few years. Did they take a style cue? Is this thing like a TARDIS? Is it bigger on the inside? Because it really didn't look that big on the outside. Either one of them. But they seemed huge on the inside. Like, do they play shuffleboard on the bridge? Where did the space cobwebs come from in the alien ship? and all of that huge space in that ship, they don't have spare parts like something important as a meteor reflector, TM. I don't know. I didn't see the twist at the end coming. So, speaking about the plot, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, or like Tom says, like other people have said, I think I've seen this movie before, except with better special effects and better monsters. I don't know. Other people will make more entertaining and intelligent comments about the plot, so I'll just hush right now. Next! Over to you. Back to you, Tom.
Oh, Michael, you can do so much better than that. I am expecting more out of you later. Let's see. KFITSK, Burl and Dallas, your comments on the plot to Planet of the Vampires. Please go ahead from KE5ICX.
This is KF5TSK. Well, I would say I should have read the book before I watched the movie because there were so many things in the movie that really didn't get explained, or will it happen, and well, who's killing who, and what's going on. There was just so much that wasn't really explained. I guess you're just supposed to figure it out. So, one thing I thought was interesting was initially they started off in leather suits, and then they switched to orange jumpsuits, and I was like, so they were supposed to fly around in the spaceship with in leather attire and then switch to something else. KF5TSK, back to net.
Oh, brother, you can't figure that one out? Come on, Burl. That's club wear and leisure wear. You decide which one's which. Next up is James, KG5BMN. I think he's over in Echo Lake tonight. James, what do you think about the plot? I know you got an opinion. From KE5ICS.
This is KG5PMN, James here in Fort Worth. Thought the plot was kind of on the thin side. They take off, they get a signal from an unknown signal from a planet somewhere, and then they land on the planet. Didn't agree with the G-force analysis, looked it up, and they hit 40 Gs. They were awfully lucky to be alive at the end of it, and the guy trying to fly the ship at that many Gs, he couldn't have done anything with it anyway. So they kind of threw everything off on my experiences with the movie. It kind of burned everything. But they spent a lot of time just wandering around trying to figure out what was going on, and they could have probably cut some of that down. And to just make it short, they got a signal from another planet. They landed on there. They got in a fight, which I really didn't understand in the beginning why they got into that fight when they landed. But I guess that was part of what the aliens were doing to them. Didn't see any vampires, but zombies, like it was already mentioned. And then they finally visited a couple other ships and kind of figured out toward the end of the second part, they figured out that zombies were taking over the bodies, and the end was an unexpected twist, because I thought everybody was going to try to be going back to Earth to begin with, which evidently wasn't the initial fact. Back to the movie, back to the net, KG5PMN.
well, yes, it has those confusing moments, and yeah, I know. But here's the thing: the movie was in color. We don't get to see many color movies, so here's one. All right, Brett, KM5AVW, you're out in California. Tell us, you didn't see the movie, but you're frantically reading up on it. What are your comments about this film? Does it remind you of anything you've ever seen before? KM5AVW from KE5ICX. Go ahead. KM6AVW. Go ahead.
KM6AVW. Well, let's see. I think I was about 3 when this thing was made, and back then it probably would have scared me to death. But yeah, reading up on it, it sounds kind of interesting. But I think had it been made today with special effects and things, the abilities that they have today, it could have probably been a lot better. I haven't really seen enough of it to really honestly comment with any real meaning. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass it on, and if I think of something later, I'm still watching a few of the little clips on YouTube. But the one thing I did catch initially was that 40G gravity that they have there. The first scene I saw was people starting to fight, and my first thought was, 40G's, how in the world can they even lift their arms to do that? But anyway, hey, it's sci-fi. Anything goes, I guess. Anyway, back to you, and thanks for letting me join in. KM6AVW.
Very good, and thank you, Brett, for joining us. And you don't get off the hook that easily. You're right about the 40Gs. Nobody would have survived. I've been reading a book, what is it, Apollo 8 by Jeffrey Kruger. He's talking about, I think the maximum was 6 Gs, sustained Gs, something like that. For any period of time, 40 Gs would kill anybody, 20 Gs would kill anybody. But these aren't ordinary people, these are actors. Next up, N5HYP Tom in Irving, or in Echo Lake of all places. He may appear anywhere, but, you know, the vampires did too. N5HYP from KE5ICX, your thoughts about the plot?
This is N5HYP. Hi, Tom, and everybody else on the net. Holly just said, "What plot?" It was pretty holy, and I'm not talking spiritual. It was just darn holy. WHOLY. As Burl said, yeah, you had to try to wade your way through a lot of things that weren't explained. Actually, it was funny because somebody mentioned the leather jumpsuits. I mean, with the turned up collars, I kept thinking, I guess, are these people on the ship the vampires? Not initially, but spoiler alert, they were at the end. So they did kind of look with the upturned collars, kind of like your classic Count Dracula type vampire character. From a character standpoint, it was really hard to tell anybody apart except for the two women because they screamed. There were a couple of interesting and amusing parts of the story, but on average, well, it was well below average. Back to net, KE5ICX of the group, N5HYP. Oh, by the way, Anna kept complaining that she had no clue who the people were or how many people there actually were. People just kept showing up. We weren't sure whether they were there to begin with or not. So it was kind of a strange cast. And 5HYP back.
All right, thank you, Tom. And yeah, I don't disagree. Well, people kept showing up because Century 1, 2, 3, 5, 12, 14, 18, and then there were lots of expendable people that showed up. So, yeah, they had a little Star Trek issue there where when you got more than one crew involved and they're from two big starships, all these people show up and you don't know who they are because they all look the same and wear the same uniforms. The only thing you know are the ones in red are going to die. In this case, the ones in red piping on their leather jumpsuit things, they're the ones that are going to die, and did. Also, their uniforms look like they, well, no, I can't say anything. I got to wait. KG5BZWJ near Weatherford, not in Weatherford. Your comments about the plot to Planet of the Vampires. I got to check because I call it other things all the time because I can't remember the name. Go ahead, Jay.
This is KG5BGW. Interesting concept. I guess I don't have to cover that. The plot, I have to admit, oh gosh, our streaming provider having a commercial every, it seemed like 3 or 4 minutes didn't exactly help. I almost watched it, another source, legal, but decided against it. Really, did they really know what was going on with this film? I mean, even the characters themselves realized that a 40G incident would. It's like one of the characters I remember saying, 25Gs will kill anything. So, but we don't know what's going on, and yeah. And there's just a lot of that going on. There was even I remember there were orange jumpsuits at one point. And I never could figure out why they decided to go to those suits at that particular time, and then go back to the other suits. There's okay, I don't know. I actually want to praise this film a little bit, but I'm having trouble praising it. It's just one of those things that execution could have been a lot better from just. I know they needed dark. It was a horror kind of film, so they needed dark, but because of the darkness, you couldn't understand who was who or anything. And of course, it was two crews and all of that. A lot of confusion. Just, I think partially just because of that, the lack of light. I think maybe I don't know, maybe that was partly on purpose, but I love you kind of want to know there's mystery you want to have, and then there's mystery that I don't think is really relevant, and I thought a lot of mystery was not relevant. And yeah, why don't they have a spare a meteor deflector thing? Seems kind of important. Actually, I like the idea of whatever that meteor scatter thing is, because we literally would need it if interstellar travel is possible. I can't imagine traveling
out something that could deflect, even a tiny particle at, stupendous speed. But excuse me. Let me reset. Otherwise, I don't know what to say. I think I've kind of addressed I've addressed the bad. I'm not sure what to address on the good side. Like I said, interesting concept, but we know where that went. KG5BZW.
All right, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. Let's see. Let's move on. Oh, my God. Just to let everybody know, The Invaders is on, and they have an episode of The Spores. There's a bunch of people in this episode who were Gene Hackman is just a TV actor in this. People from MASH are in it. I just thought I'd mention that on the side. In case you want to watch something visually since this is radio, over there on MeTV. Okay, thank you, Jay. Next up is WB5OZL, Miss Brent. I know you enjoyed this movie immensely, so you've got lots of positive comments about the plot, so please go ahead. WB5OZL from KE5ICX.
WB5OZL, you are so delusional. I enjoyed this movie, really. I just want to know who picked it. I think it was you, sir. First matter of business. Michael wants a refund from me. Sorry, you paid. And as a matter of fact, every time you complain and want your money back, I charge your credit card again. So you might want to stop demanding that you get your money back, or you'll be sorry. I was hoping somebody would explain this movie. We've been over 30 minutes into this net, and nobody has given an explanation of what this thing's about. Because I don't know. I mean, I watched the whole thing. I even stayed awake. But it was so muddled and vague and convoluted. I just didn't know what it was about. So I'm not really qualified to comment on the plot because I didn't notice one. But I'll have plenty to say about those costumes and all. I want to be the first to say colored lighting special effects were stunning. They had that down. Nailed it. I think I'm going to go and watch me some Ripley. I was so sick of those simpering, stupid women that I don't know why so many old movies are like that. All right, I am starting to ramble, so I'm going to quit. WB5OZL.
ICX. I'll ask if there are any additional check-ins if you're out there. We're talking about Planet of the Vampires from 1965, or Terra nel Spazio, or Terra in Space, as it is named in Italian. A fine film from 1965. If anybody would like to join us who has not checked in already, please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, your MasterCard number, and did you see this film?
AC5AJ.
Okay, we got one more person in for Planet of the Vampires, KG5HJ. That call sign looks familiar. Could I get your name? Did you see this film?
That was Kilo Golf 5 Alpha Hotel Juliet. Now, to the tonight's film, I've been a long-time listener of the net. I just finally decided to check in, and I do not have a MasterCard for you there, so good luck.
All right, I've got to tell you this. You're put on notice. If you hear something that is egregiously favorable or unfavorable, you are welcome to use break very enthusiastically and say, I disagree, counselor, and then give your call sign. All right, I'm going to give you my thoughts on this film. Many people didn't like this film. I am not one of the people who liked this film. However, I did not dislike the film, which means it was sort of a middle of the road, geez, what's going on here? Now, I got plenty of comments about the special effects. I have some comments about the acting. But I will comment about the plot. The plot wasn't all that bad. We've heard this plot before. The two spacecraft get a distress signal from this fog-enshrouded planet. They decide they're going to go down and find out what it is. The two spacecraft are flying in tandem. In case one gets destroyed, the other one goes on, which is exactly what happened, kind of. The two crews know each other very well. They seem to get along and all that sort of jazz. And they go down onto the planet to find out what's going on. They find this massive spaceship, bigger than their massive spaceships. Does that sound familiar? They find that the creatures on board are 3 times the size they are. Does that sound familiar? They also had fallen victim to the distress message. And the Argos people are on the planet and they want off because they're non-corporeal spirits. Does that sound like any number of 2, 3, 10 Star Trek episodes? If not, you haven't been paying attention. Alien possession is a main staple of everything having to do with science fiction horror, including Star Trek, including, I don't know what else. They did on Lost in Space, and that wasn't even science fiction. That was something else entirely. So, yeah, you get that. I thought that was okay. I thought that the twist at the end, I wasn't expecting it, but I should have, when they went to the planet of the apes. The problem with the story was, as was mentioned earlier, is it's a little thin. I agree with that. Not enough going on to really make the thing really keep us, I don't know, entertained, I guess, for 90-something minutes. Would have made a nice 20-minute night gallery episode, or maybe a Twilight Zone with a better script. Either way, it would have worked. We still would have gotten Rod Serling with or without the portrait painting. So, I don't know. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was enough for Ridley Scott to steal it and use it in his own film, which, by the way, is his 40th anniversary this week. Actually, tomorrow, in case you're wondering, public service announcement. Alien is showing at a fandom event somewhere in your area for the 40th anniversary. And then it again appears, I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday next week. So if you want to see a better version of it, you can. It'll be on the big screen TV at your local theaters. I don't know what else to add on the plot itself right now, because it was somewhat thin, but I didn't think it was all that bad since the first attempt to do that sort of thing. Now, I will say this. One thing I will finally say, there were no vampires. This was more of a zombie thing, if you want to talk about that. There were no vampires. And considering it was terror in space, or a horror terror story, this thing, American International renamed it. The only person missing from this film was Raymond Burr, who should have been sitting in a room talking on a microphone telephone explaining to us what this all was going on. If he had been there, it would have been better. Okay, let's go to the top of the list. Now, before I start, just remember we're going to talk about the characterizations. So you're going to have to discuss all of our characters, or some of our characters, or none of our characters, depending on what that is. That's Captain Marky Mark, or Mark Markery, Sanya Wessant. How about that for a name? Mark Markery and Wes Wessant, Tiona, and Bert, as in Bert and Ernie, Care, as in Care Delay, Toby Markery, that's the brother, Eldon, and Carter, everybody loves Carter, and Captain Salas, what a dummy he was, and Dr. Karen, the person who took care of the dead bodies. Those are all your characters. So let's start at the top. WT9V, Michael, characterization. You're on from KE5ICX.
Okay, well, one, I'm going to make one more plot comment. And why did both ships go down to investigate at first? Shouldn't one have stood off and watched it first? Isn't that standard operating procedure? I mean, why do we want to put all of our eggs in one basket and then tip the basket over the edge of a cliff? I mean, really, come on. Also, thanks for all the reminder of all the people that I'm not going to talk about, but like so many of these badly dubbed films, I just have to wonder if it was totally different in the original Italian. The title was totally different and much more descriptive of the movie. There was another movie that we watched not too long ago that was, or maybe it was another movie that I watched. That the title was this in the original, and it was translated to something that really had nothing to do with the film. And I just had to watch. I think it was something that we watched. It was like, this makes no sense, and I wish I knew Italian so I could see if it made sense in Italian, because it didn't make sense in English, and this was one of those. Another aside, I like Tom. Remember last night how many times Brenda went on and on about how much she enjoyed the movie, and she really enjoyed the plot, and she thought that the costumes were anyway. All right, I'll quit picking on Brenda for a couple of minutes. One comment. I just got a text from Brenda. I'm in trouble now. A comment about the 20 or 40G thing. We have to remember that these were some kind of aliens that just happened to look like people. They weren't people, remember? They hadn't come from Earth. They only went to Earth later after the aliens, the gassy things, I don't know, whatever they were, took them over. So they weren't human. They just looked human. Maybe they could tolerate 40Gs. Maybe they have titanium innards or something. I don't know. Titanium bones. It could happen. I don't know. It's science fiction. Anything could happen. From Brenda, because I might be in big trouble. Anyway, the other thing was mentioned that the characters all seem to be interchangeable, except for a couple of big-haired, very stylish women, and Marky Mark, who is a captain. I don't have a whole lot to go on about this, although I've been going on for a fair amount. I don't have a whole lot to say about the different characters, because they just didn't really do anything for me. They were all kind of, I don't know, I think it was lost in translation. Back to you, Tom, WT9V.
Thank you, Michael. You could be right. Lost in translation. That could be the major excuse in this film. KF5TSK, bro, in Dallas, your comments on characterization. You always have an in-depth analysis of how the motivations, the modus operandi, and the demotivation that goes with all of this. So, KFI TSK. From KE5ICX, tell us.
Well, one of the things I look in the movie is the only person that really stood out was Captain Markery, and everybody else was just kind of, walking into the scene, and you really had no idea of what they do or why they were there. One of the things that I thought was so interesting was the ladies' hairstyles. And I wondered, where did they go to the beauty parlor when they were in space? Because it looked like they were, had just walked out with the number of curls that they had in their hair. Strange thing about the movie is they were charging the solar batteries, but the problem with the planet was it had no sun. KFI TSK back to net.
No sun. Okay. All right, Earl, thank you. Your comments were written down, and I have everything right here. Next, KG6AVW, Brent in California. Are you up to speed? Do you now have everything you need to know about, let's name this movie again? Oh, yeah. This very well orchestrated and followed film, Planet of the Empires, that everybody else has followed very deeply. Please go ahead, Brett. What do you got for us from KE5ICX?
Kilo Mike 6, Alpha Victor Whiskey. Okay, so I'm intrigued now and actually want to see the whole thing. For its day, it was probably rather well done. I think about shows like Lost in Space and some of the other stuff that was on in that same general time period or shortly thereafter. And, it's probably pretty good for the era. I do have to question Captain Markery's intelligence. Thinking of the clip that I saw where they were on the alien spaceship and a shot with him and Sonya, and she gets shocked, and he says, "How?" And she points at this object that's all lit up, and she says, "By touching that." And of course, what does he do? He touches it and says, "Ouch," himself. Well, that's kind of intelligent, isn't it? But honestly, with all of the clips that I've seen, I think Captain Markery, in one of his lines in the show, kind of expressed how I feel about these different clips I've seen. And to quote him, it says, his line was, "Ah, yes, as if it were composed of little globes of light, something fleeting, nothing definite. And the minute I looked at the things directly, they were gone." So that's kind of how I feel with what I know about this thing so far. There's not enough, hadn't been enough time to look at this in detail, but it's definitely enough to pique my interest. So I'll pass it on back to Net Control, and we'll go from there. KM6 AVW, thank you.
Well, very good, Brett. Now, I have to tell you something. You've thought more about the film than anybody else ever, including the director and the actors. So, congratulations. If there is a reboot in order, they need you as a consultant. Next up, I think, James, I missed you. KG5PMN. I do that sometimes. I have this little pen, and I have to mark off whether you... that sometimes I forget to mark you off. So you're up. Tell us about the characterization from KE5ICX.
This is KG5PMN. I thought about the only two characters that really or three characters that stood out with me was the Captain and the guy that was the smaller guy that was messed up the meteor scatter thing, and then the redheaded woman. Those about the only three that really stood out for me. Everybody else just kind of was there and did a lot of wandering around and carrying those whatever kind of guns they were carrying. I don't know if they were supposed to be ray guns or light guns or what they were supposed to be, but yeah, the characters really didn't stand out too well for me except for the captain. He seemed to be trying to be in charge of everything. Back to the net, KG5PMN.
All right, thank you, James. And I want to acknowledge we've got KC0USM on. I'm going to get to you in just a minute. I'm going to put you on the list, KC0USM. And they're in Dallas, actually, listening in. And we'll get to you here just as I get to the bottom of the list, which is here very shortly. N5HYP, Tom, losing my mind. Tom, I know who you are. Tell us about the plot. You and the fam, what do they have to say? Not the plot, the characterization.
Hey, KE5ICX in the group again, N5HYP. Well, the characters were about as uninteresting as the plot. Again, they were all fairly homogenous, except for the two women that scream. And you knew that's why they were there. And yeah, like Brenda, that looking back at the roles, the minor roles many times that people gave women, especially in these types of movies, that's kind of what they were there for. So that's real unfortunate, looking at that back from history. It was interesting. I had a question. The director was Italian. If you look at the end credits, everybody's Italian. So this movie was made in Italy. From a technical standpoint, how do they deal with, was it originally shot in Italian? I don't think any of these actors were American actors. Was it shot in Italian? And then how do they decently overdub the voices without too much really bad lip sync issues? I've never understood that. I'd love to know. It's an interesting question for me. Part of the low-tech magic and science that was the movies back in the 60s. Now we have nice digital tools to be able to help with dialogue replacement and such like that. But back then it was a much more of an analog art. Kind of curious to me, but this is going to be my last round here. I did like the color. I did like the use of color, like Brenda said. I think it was actually done well. That was about it. Back to net from N5HYP. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you, Tom. And here's a little bit of advice. You have to do one or two or both of these things. And that is that you have to sleep for 9 hours, like I did today. I'm actually kind of awake. There have been times I've fallen asleep during my own net. Sometimes I don't know if I'm awake or not. I could actually be asleep right now and not know it. But in any case, that's one thing. The second thing is always take a nap in the afternoon. I suggest 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock on a Saturday for a little nap is fine, especially in Texas when it's usually really warm. And and that seems to be kind of the heat of the day, so you go take a nap. Siesta, if you will. Then I get up at 4 and start putting all this stuff together, mainly Skynet. But in any case, yeah, a 1-hour nap works. So next time, gauge your time and you'll be fine. Next up is KG. Oh, and by the way, I love the color thing too. I'm going to talk about that on the next round. KG5BZW, Jay near Weatherford, your comments on characterization.
This is KG5BZW. Promised myself not to. Anyway, try to stop interrupting myself here. So I will say this: I was kind of glad that there's I can't remember what her actual part was as far as crew. She seemed to be communications officer, but you also have the whole thing I'm trying to get at is that she was a full-fledged part of the crew, and I like that they wrote her that way. She wasn't, I don't know, just overly. She seemed to be treated mostly equally, except for, of course, the screen factor. Anyway, that was, I spent far too long in saying that. The transcendental beings, as we actually should probably refer to them, or I don't know. They actually had a better name or label in the movie. I'm just calling them that because they transcended your form of time and space. Or something. I can't even remember the quote. They tended to right. These as another guy remarked that all of these characters are not human. This is just human like Star Wars things, but I'm just I'm a bad one. But the infected ones, they really oh gosh, I am so rambly here. It just seemed kind of weird that the other characters didn't really notice when, because they did eventually when someone who I don't. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure there's a point to this ramble, so I'm just gonna hand it to the next person. I just, in fact, there isn't really. I'm sorry. To finish off. Oh, I'm just gonna hand it to the next person. I don't know. I went on my train of thought just completely derailed there. I was trying to say something about the character, those aliens to the aliens, but I'm not even sure what to say about them. So hand it over to the next guy. I'm sorry, KG5BGW.
All right, thank you, Jay, and thank you for your comments. Next up, I have WB50ZL, Miss Brenda. I think you found that the and correct me if I'm wrong, the women had, one was a doctor, the other one screamed a lot. What did you think about the characterization, WB5OZL from KE5ICX?
This is WB5OZL. You know, here in the United States, when we select astronauts, part of the basis we use for selection is IQ. Pretty much, if you're an astronaut, you're pretty smart. Apparently, they just took anybody who could fog a mirror and had reasonably good hair. This is the dumbest bunch of people I've ever seen. The scene where the woman touches something and it shocks her, and the guy, he touches it, and it shocks him. But these are worse than teenagers in a Jason movie. Like, how many different mistakes could you make? So, you know, there were fistfights, there were all kinds of things. They didn't get along, they were unprofessional, they didn't seem to know what they were doing. The women were especially annoying because they were just typical of the 60s, simpering, helpless females. Oh, and they get hysterical, too, when things go wrong. That last movie we saw, one of them even got slapped for it. It's a sign of the times. I couldn't hardly tell the characters apart, because they all looked a lot alike. The costumes, I guess they were okay. I guess they were kind of Italian. The hair was good. They just weren't really believable as astronauts to me. And that's all I'm going to say for now. WB5OZL.
God bless America. All right, thank you, Miss Brenda, and thank you for your comments, and we'll go around with another round here in just a moment. Next we have Brandon, KC0USM. He's listening in. He heard us on software-defined radio. It was being transmitted out on 2-meter radio locally here. He is in, what is it? I wrote it down, North Valley, Iowa, I think. He has a unique perspective on this. He says, indeed, I'm ready. And I might let you know, we're about to hear a blind ham's perspective on movies and characterization, so it doesn't make pure sense. I'll do my best. So, he's in Missouri Valley, Iowa. So he's going to come on now and give us his best. Brandon, go ahead. I'm really interested in what you have to say. So this is KC0USM from KE5ICX. Go ahead, Brandon.
Okay, well, hopefully I'm getting in. This is KC0USM here in Missouri Valley, Iowa. Let's not talk so close to the microphone, Brandon. Okay, there we go. All right, so if you hear me echoing, it is the software-defined radio out of Dallas, Texas. I'm just listening to my levels the way that the repeater hears them. All right, about the movie and characterizations. Well, it's a little difficult to describe the characterizations visually because there was no audio description. I had to basically do everything based off of the audibles. I think the actors did an okay job to a point in terms of the vocals and the acting, but I promise you, I would have liked to have seen a little more feeling behind some of the characters' voices than what I heard. But in terms of the movie itself, I wasn't a huge fan of the plot, but I could see where it was going. Personally, the thing that caught my attention was the unknown, if you will, and I'm always a big fan of the unknown. If you can give me a movie that I have to figure out what the plot is, I more have to watch it, other than one that's predictable. But it did seem to me like the plot was starting to get predictable at one point, then it was unpredictable at another, and then it was predictable at one point. So, go to the halfway point. I like the guy said that the woman's screams were definitely noteworthy. Definitely, I agree with you on that. Although Brenda, the observations you made, absolutely, I agree with those in terms of what the non-visual the non-visuals that you gave. So I'll give you credit there. You certainly hit the nail on the head. But that's really kind of my perspective, kind of from a blind person's perspective. I know it doesn't sound like much, but when you have to watch a movie without audio description, or DVS as it's called, descriptive video service, you have a little bit less that you can say, but you always want to try to do the best you can to contribute with a little bit of commentary, I guess, if you will. And for those who don't know where Missouri Valley is on a map, just to give you an idea, I'm not too far from Omaha, Nebraska. So that kind of gives you a little idea where I'm located, and I'm surprised my wireless is holding and my internet is holding up. So good deal. All right, we're going to go back to Net Control. We're going to go back to ICX, who is handling Net Control. By the way, that radio sounds really interesting. I'm curious what kind of radio that is. KC0 USM, back to Net. Good evening from Moval.
Well, very good, Brandon. Thank you. Your audio held up, and it was intelligent and discernible from an audio standpoint. And thank you for your comments. This is really interesting what you have to say. I hope you will come back. And by the way, you can go on the next round here too. But I hope you'll come back and give your comments on any additional films. We do put this stuff out. It's over on Facebook. It's on Afterglow Movie, 2 words, Afterglow, and then the second word is movie. Just say you want to sign up, and we'll put you there. Or if you don't like any of that Facebook stuff, send an email to me, KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com, and say sign me up. And I'll put you on the list and send you the email with the links to the movies. All the movies that we do are available legally online somewhere, someplace. Occasionally we go see a movie ourselves. Every once in a while there is a movie that we do that's not online, but that is usually at your own peril, but that's extremely rare. I think we only did that once, and everybody had Star Wars on their in their library, so that one was pretty easy to do. Okie dokie, let's see here. Next up on the list is, I'll see if there are any additional check-ins. Anyone else would like to join us? We're talking about, what is this movie again? I have to check it every time because I can't remember. Oh yeah, Planet of the Vampires. Anybody else would like to join us? You don't have to necessarily see the movie, but if you're into planets or vampires or of the, please come down with your call sign and your name and where you're transmitting from.
KC0 USM with a comment, with an observation.
Brandon, go ahead. Probably went too fast. KC0 USM, Brandon, go ahead with your comment.
Yeah, I keep forgetting. I got to let the repeater drop in order to come through. I could my Echo Link isn't telling me when the signal is clear. Now, of course, being totally blind, it's a little bit different. I was going to say the comments that you're talking about with movies that are online. Yeah, if you would, and I posted my email address, if you would, maybe to help out so maybe I can give a little better perspective, if you can find out, as you post movies, maybe give a little insight if the movie has audio description for the blind. That would definitely help me out tremendously in my ability to comment for you guys. And you had to mention Star Wars, and now this one line is stuck in my head. The Force is with you, young Skywalker. Remember that one, and you'll probably go to sleep tonight. All right, KC0USF.
All right. Very good, Brandon. Yeah, I will do that. I unfortunately have to tell you this, that most of our movies are older movies, although we get our greatest participation, of course, on newer movies. But as we get closer and closer to present day, they become films with, you have to charge for everything. So I have a tendency, like most hams, to find stuff that's free. Free, I tell you, and that works the best. But I will put that in the email. I'll tell you what, if you would, you can also send me an email at w5fc.org or the email that I gave you earlier, which is ke5icx@yahoo.com. That's probably the best one, but that's okay. You can send it to either one, and we'll hear from you. Okay, let's see. We've got N5IMS. JJ over in Carrollton is on board. And let's see. I know N5YEO. N5YEO. And that's Stephen in San Antonio. Let me go ahead and ask. Let me start with JJ. N5IMS. He doesn't always have a microphone, but JJ, you got anything for us on Planet of the Vampires from 1965? You're a latecomer to the Afterglow Movie Net, but that doesn't mean you don't have comments. So if you do, come on by from KE5ICX. Oh, he backed out already. He ran into the shadows. He says, no, I did not see this film. Please don't ask me ever again. And don't ask for ID. He says, oh, well, I don't know why that is. Let's see, N5YEO, Stephen in San Antonio. Hey, you're retired. Things are great. You can watch movies anytime you want. You can stay up late. What's going on in your ham world? Did you see this film? Planet of the Vampires from KE5ICX. Man, he ran off again. Oh, that guy. I'm going to report him to the Better Ham Bureau. Okay, my thoughts on the characterization. Yeah, they're all terrible. Let's face it, the characterizations were terrible. People were all kind of like, I'm in charge, and I'm sure in Italian it even sounded even better. I'm in charge, we're going to take care of all this stuff. But I think what made them agitated more than anything else were those high-neck motorcycle jackets they were wearing. Those things would drive you nuts. You're sitting under heavy lights. You're being bombarded by meteorites. You got stuff going on. People are dying everywhere. There's corporeal people coming back to life. You got this big, huge spaceship that you got to dust and clean and mop. That's enough to drive you insane. So when you're wearing the damn the darn, those big high-neck things and the skull caps and everything else, and you don't even, have an empire and a legion of flying monkeys, and you're this stuff. What do you get out of it? Nothing. This is what drives me nuts about this movie. You got this great piping. You got yellow piping. You got red piping. You got these wonderful, these outfits and everything. Everybody's running around going, yeah, we're going to make things happen. And hey, crew over there, you're great. And somehow or another, these people people just don't, they're not connecting, they're not doing logical things, they're walking off into the unknown by themselves, and then they're coming back as dead, but nobody knows that. But when you look at them, they look like they've been dragged by a spaceship along a planet, keel-hauled on the spacecraft, and they don't even notice that. What the heck's wrong with these people? Wait, that's a plot point, isn't it? Acting, characterization, nothing. I agree. Homogenistic, everybody looked the same and talked alike. Sometimes you could lose your mind. And we even had what was it, the son, brother, something? I don't know. First cousin, whatever it was. They had the same last name, and the captain was all upset about it. So I don't know. Okay. That's it for me on the characterization. Now we can dive into the real meat of this movie, which is the special effects, sound, fighting, all that stuff. So be ready. We're going to discuss it. So I'm going to the top of the list. Let's go to WT9V. Michael, your thoughts on special effects? In fact, I'm going to say and open it up to anything you want to talk about. Special effects, anything about this film, you name it, just make sure that you got the spelling correct. WT9V from KE5I6.
I know that it's been a long time since we talked, Tom, but I mean, you've already forgotten who I am. I thought I was more memorable than that. I guess I'm wrong. Once again, I have to mention this. These people were not people. They were some kind of people-looking aliens, but they weren't people. Because they had never seen the planet Earth before, apparently. Anyway, and as far as special effects, I don't really think there were any special effects. But I don't know. I'm just going to kind of randomly mutter things here for a little bit, because that's kind of what I thought when I watched the film. Like you say, I liked the spaceship. It was pretty. It was bigger on the inside. That's got to count for something. I'd like to get the commission for the floor waxing, because that should take forever and probably pay for a nice mansion, because there's a lot of floors. But I'm gathering my thoughts here. 1 second. Way that the people looked when they'd been injured, kind of all of their wounds kind of looked the same, like they had been burned. And then when I saw the guns that seemed to shoot out a flame for a couple of feet, and then people fell down, that sort of made sense. But it was really awful. When was this made? Oh yeah, 1965. How could it be? How can some of these films be so bad when we had pretty decent TV the same era? I don't know. It's just I don't understand it. And maybe Tom, the expert on all things film, can explain this to me, because there's been so little explanation on anything with this film. I'm kind of lost. I'm just thinking about the things, the way the thrust from the ship came out at the bottom of it, but I don't know. Back to you, Tom.
Oh, Michael, too much angst. It's okay. This is what happens when you're the very first person who checks in. You have to lead the parade, and then everybody else follows, and then everybody gives comments, and then the guy at the end, which is always the net control, can say, well, I obviously this and that and the other thing, which is what I will do, makes it all work. But since you're the first guy, you have to go, why? Everybody else goes, what? And so you look like the oaf. But it's okay, Michael. You're not an oaf in my book. You're A1, not an oaf. KFI-TSK, Burl, your comments on anything you want to say, special effects and beyond, from KE5ICX.
This is KFI-TSK. Well, this was a low-budget film. You know, it looked nice, but one of the things about the guns, if they fired it at the feet, it came out as a fire extinguisher type foam. If they fired it up, it came out as fire. I thought that was really strange. The Aurorans, you know, you had to be dead before they could take over your body. Who wants to take over a dead body? I mean, and the thing about touching this flashing object, you know, the lady touched it, and then the captain touched it, and it's like, oh, ouch, that's over 200 volts. I wonder how his hand knew that. And then it was like, oh, it also weighs 100 pounds. Oh, it's so difficult to move. You know, one of the things about stealing the meteor deflector was two of the Aurorians actually took off, and it was like, we want to move our whole civilization somewhere else. You know, in Star Trek, if they had asked, it's kind of like, sure, we'll move your whole planet. KFI-TSK, back to net.
Well, thank you, Burl, and I realized something very scary. You take notes during these movies, and you probably don't have, you know, refreshments nearby, which scares me even more. But you're so responsible. You are the designated driver of this net. I just wanted to let you know you don't do the net as a net control, although you can at any time, but you are the designated driver. I appreciate you staying on the right side of the road and making sure we do the appropriate things at the appropriate time and bring us and level us back into the reality. And you'll have to figure out that word. Next up is KG5PMN. James, your comments on anything you want. Special effects is on top of the list, but anything you want. Please go ahead. KG5PMN from KE5ICX.
This is KG5PMN. I didn't really care for the special effects too much. Kind of thought that the underlying special effect, I guess, around the ship was a lot of glass balls on a big soundstage, and looked to me like it was filmed in a fisheye. It was a fisheye lens quite a bit. Some of the close-ups were not in fisheye, but I couldn't figure out, you know, if they mentioned something about the red stuff, like if it was molten lava, and I didn't care how hot it was, I just wanted to get over it. And I don't know about that, but the two guys that showed up toward the end of the movie, that came from out of nowhere, I was looking at them and says, something's wrong with this picture with those two, even though they were supposed to have just been tired. And the other thing that never was really explained or shown was what the aliens were that actually were taking over the corpses and all of, and also wondered where the steel plates that they had for after burying the people, when the first two or three kind of opened up and came out out of bags as a cocoon like thing. Where'd they come from and who'd they get buried by? Back to the neck, KG5PMN.
No, I agree, James. There wasn't much there that they, gave us as far as, a backstory and how that all worked out. But that's the mysteries of everything, I guess. And this is KE5ICX. Now, I'm going to tell you, we've gone back to normal repeater use as far as the repeater is concerned, so you may want to drop carrier from time to time. That way, then, it doesn't time out, which it will do under when it's a non-net setup, which is what's happening right now. And I'm going to do that, like this. All right, next up is Brett, KM6AVW. Let me tell you, Brett, I know this is special effects and all that, and that's not going to jive with you, but all I can tell you is this, is that through the story, they did the spaceship that had preceded them was this big, huge, massive spaceship. Think of Alien. And a lot of everything that was done mist with occluded people around and wind and things happening. Personally, I didn't think it was all that bad. It was all done on a set, and it was obvious that it was in closed quarters, but I thought overall they did kind of an okay job with it, but I reveal my thoughts on the thing. KM6AVW, Brett, do you have anything you want to say or thoughts or anything involving anything, actually? This is open now. Anything you want to say about the movie? KM6AVW from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Tom, KM6AVW. Yeah, a couple things. I heard somebody mentioning earlier that these were not people, they were aliens, but if I'm reading correctly, and maybe somebody can clarify for me, the fact that they were aliens didn't come to light until the end of the movie. So, and looking at the previews and things, it makes it it gives the impression that the people that are landing to help whoever's in distress are actually people. So I was a little confused with that. But the movie itself, looking online, it cost $200,000 to make. And in today's dollars, that's about $1.6 million. Given that, looking at what clips I've been able to see, I don't know. It might be okay for the amount of money that they had to spend on the thing. I did come across some of the bloopers in the movie online, and just to name a few of them, when scanning the planet at the beginning, the commander comments that 2 meteors have just passed. However, he made that comment before the second meteor was actually seen, so it would have been impossible for him to know the second meteor was coming, according to one site here. Another one, towards the end of the movie, I guess Sonya tosses the ray rifle to Mark on board the Galliot near the end. She tosses it to him backwards. He catches it and holds it on his possessed brother's body backwards, despite it being clearly shown earlier firing the opposite end. He was pointing at Toby, or when he was pointing it at Toby. A moment later, he shoots Toby's body, and the ray rifle is pointed correctly. And it sounds like there's one other scene where captain and a female crewman are returning to the ship with the device. She nearly falls into lava and leaves her rifle behind. Moments later, their chasers pass over the same area, and the rifle's missing, but she then has it back in her possession. So, like all movies, there's always bloopers and things, but there were a few of them that, just to mention, I'm just curious if anybody else caught any of those. But other than that, I'm going to have to watch it now just for the giggles. And the other thing is, I keep thinking back, 1965, I mean, we hadn't even landed on the moon. And granted, I was very, very young, but I wonder, a lot of people have lost their imagination, and because we have grown so far technically, and we see things that had never been seen by society back then when this thing was made. So, I guess just got to use your imagination for some of this older stuff to have fun with it. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks again, KM6AVW.
All right, Brad, thank you, and thank you for the comments on the discontinuity. That does happen a lot. And in fact, I think Rogue One was an example of that here not too long ago. I guess that's over a year ago now, but lots of continuity problems because that film was reshot so many different times. And I'll be honest with you, I actually work in... I do video now. It's not where I started, but I do video and audio stuff at work, and we have to work through continuity issues all the time. So it gets lost in the sauce when you're trying to make a movie, especially a complicated science fiction film, which is always more difficult to do than any other type of film, which is one of the reasons why we like to talk about and pick apart films. It just works that way. It just is that, because it is that much more complicated. By the way, just for a note, for those who are interested, it is a new season of television. That even includes old television. MeTV is now rolled out. Lost in Space is showing now, and it's done in a higher definition. Now they do HD, but this comes from the higher videotape recordings that were done in the 1990s, and they have been now cropped to 16:9. And I have to tell you, they look great. This looks really, really good. So if you're a Lost in Space fan, they've got the original episodes, first season, first few episodes out, and you can even see the hairs on Don West's head, which were very perfect. Next up, let's see, is KG5BZWJ over in Weatherford. Your comments on anything you want, anything about this movie you want to talk about, please do so now. This is KE5ICX.
This is KG5BZW. Yeah, I'm kind of glad that Brett brought up that goof, because I was just thinking those rifles basically look like they took rifles and then decided to they're going to work backwards, and of course that confuses the actors because they're just regular rifles that work backwards, but you're not supposed to use the shoulder shoulder stock, whatever, as your shoulder thing. And anyway, shows what I know. Let's see. The music, I can't even remember the music, but it sound effects. Special effects, not much I really can say, but it wasn't so bad that it was memorable, so I guess that's a good thing to say about it. I actually did like the spaceship design, even though it wasn't really clear how exactly it worked. I'm not sure I've got anything else to say, so it's been a good net. And to the next person, KG5BZW.
that's fine. No problem. We're going longer than we usually do. WB5OZL, Miss Brenda. Comments on anything you want to talk about involving, I have to look it up, Planet of the Vampires. Go ahead, from KE5I6.
This is WB5OZL. I wonder why you keep forgetting the name of this movie. I think you have a psychological block about it. Oh, special effects. Gee, weren't they wonderful? Colored lights and fog. They were on a stringent budget. Planet was plastic rocks. They used mirrors to make the rocks look like more than they were. They had cheesy sets. But weren't those yellow helmets cool? And they were just sitting around everywhere. I did like that. And I love those costumes because they were so Italian. And the whole idea of aliens being humans, I mean, I know they did it on Star Trek every week. But in reality, I think that whenever we discover alien creatures, we will not share DNA with them. I think they're going to be totally different. And I don't think we're going to be able to mate with them, or that they're going to take over our bodies, or is it going to be symbiotic, or vampires, or anything like that, or body snatchers. We're going to be so alien that we just won't be able to connect at all on a genetic level. That's my opinion. We'll wait and see. Okay, back to net. WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Miss Brenda, and I'm totally geeking out on the Lost in Space thing now. Shiny objects, the visual sharpness to everything is really great. It's really nice to see this re-rolled out in a better format. Okay, next up, Brandon, KC0USM. You have anything else for us this evening? Anything you would like to talk about? It doesn't even have to be this movie. But if you got something on it, that's fine too. Brandon, go ahead. KC0USM from KE5I6. Anything you want to say?
You know, I have to say I'm rather appreciative of all of you here on this net, because I'm going to start with that, because each of you who are chatting me in the Echolink chat as we speak have been so wonderful to me, and I appreciate that. It's going to become one of my favorite stops. Let me start with that, but I wanted to make sure all of you got a compliment on that, and good job with the net. Now, about the sound for Planet of the Vampires, I was fairly impressed with some of the sound effects. Now, of course, I'm a sound person myself, and I can do vocal sound effects. So, you know, I can appreciate some of the sound effects I heard. Now, I know I'm going to get questions, I'm sure, in the chat. Well, what kind of sounds can you do? Well, I can do the sounds real quick. I can do the sounds of barking. You know, you're a dog barking, you know it for sure. But KC0USM, about the sounds, I was impressed with the sounds for sure. The thing that really caught my attention with it, though, is I'm not really sure how they managed to make the fighting sound the way they did. You know, how much work actually went into that. But let me tell you something from a blind person's perspective when it comes to sound production. It's something people probably don't realize, is even if the sounds in a movie aren't that good, it's not necessarily always the fault of the people producing the movie. They have to, a lot of work goes into editing a sound. Let me give you an idea, for example. Let me just kind of, and I'm going to break this transmission up because I understand we're in normal mode now. So let me reset it, and I'll give you my prognosis here. I'll let the courtesy tone sound, and I'll come back. Okay, so what goes into what goes into programming a sound for a movie. Let's talk about that for a second. So, one of the things that you actually come across when programming for editing a sound for a movie is very, very difficult. You have to know when to place the sound where, because in today's age of movie editing and sound editing, they do everything based off a computer. So all of that. So, for example, okay, in a movie where a gunshot fired, you want to know where to place the gunshot. You know, if it's supposed to be at this exact second, the editors go to up to the second to try to go through and put a lot into, okay, this sound should be here, this sound should go here. And it sounds easy when I say it, but it actually is very, very difficult. I actually I'm actually getting back into doing my own podcasting, and I will tell you right now, editing sounds even for a podcast, whether it's a soundscape type podcast or whether you're doing like a podcast where you're inserting sounds into special occasions, that's more simpler than doing it for a movie, because you're 80 minutes or greater of sounds and actions that are correspondent to each event inside the spaceship, for example, outside the spaceship, the different creatures, anything you might hear. So it's always a good idea. Let me reset. To remember what they're going through, and so that's why I don't always put too much criticism on the sound engineers. I listen to the people who explain the video stuff, and to me that's the bigger part. It's a lot easier, I think, for a visual person to do visual editing than it is to do sound editing. Sound editing takes a lot more precise. You got to have a good ear. You got to know that sound is going to work or it's going to fit the movie. You don't want to be too hard on the sound because you don't want it to sound too expensive. Maybe one explosion shouldn't sound so severe or otherwise. So in the sound department, I feel like they did the best job they could. This said, the music I thought was pretty interesting. Being a person who plays music on a keyboard myself, I probably could memorize some of the tunes on the keyboard, and fast to play, I probably could do that. Of course, we don't do that here on the air, but you know what I mean. If say you had me on like a Facebook Messenger call and said, hey, can you remember how to play this or that? Sure. If I hear it enough times. But that, that's to me. Some of the music was a little catchy for me anyway. But that goes to show you. When you consider somebody like myself who's blind, who's got a neurological issues, separated brain, so I have to process from one side of my brain, I intake everything very carefully. And so it makes things a little more interesting in the processing department, for sure. But that's that for you. I hope I'm not rambling your ears off. If so, hit me with a newspaper and call me Clyde. Anyway, we'll go back to control. This is KC0USM, Brandon here in Missouri Valley, and you're doing a good job with the net, and keep it up.
Well, thank you, Brandon. And I find your comments quite fascinating. I hope you will come back next week or anytime here on Saturday evening for the Night of Nets, because I think your comments are very, very interesting and very helpful. Because, hey, there are many aspects, especially with film, that come into play, and I think that multiple perspectives are very important, and as you as a blind person are going to lock into things that we may not notice in the very front of our eyes that we should be listening to and watching in ways that we don't necessarily do. So I'm cool with that. I really am. I am one of the things that I enjoy very much is soundtracks to movies. I listen to those intensely. The background music in movies, that even though the visuals may be there, my favorite thing is the soundtrack, and that always just kind of resonates with me whenever I listen. And I have thousands of soundtracks here at home that I own that I love. So I have kind of that vibe in maybe the same way you do in that regard. I think that sort of thing is really important. So it helps to create a mood and an interest. So I don't want to digress on that one, but that is, I think sound is an incredibly important part of movies, and when done properly, actually can take a bad movie and make it good, and can, when badly done, take a good script and a good story and turn it into mush.
Yeah, 5 JTC, inquiry.
You caught me off guard. TFC, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, Cat 5 JTC, inquiry. What is the status of this repeater there, man? Is there a topic or a protocol for this thing, or what are you guys doing out there? That's kind of an informational thing there, and what's the location of the repeater, if you don't mind?
Oh, no problem at all. It is 12:20 in the evening. This net usually ends at about midnight. This is the night of nets, and what this is tonight. This is the Afterglow movie net, and we talk about a movie. Every week, we assign a movie project. A movie to watch, and in this case it's, are you ready for this? Planet of the Vampires, which is actually Terror in Space in Italian from 1965. And at 10:30, we go ahead and talk about some movie. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good, sometimes they're actually kind of interesting. And in this case, this movie, which has a terrible title, actually, we've gone on longer than any other movie ever. So that's what it is. Did that help or not?
I'm just getting you guys in here at a little bit weaker signal, so I'm just, spitballing at the repeater's a little farther away, but anyway, yeah, given with the topic, I'm all in there. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that Ad Astra thing. Sounds good to me. I haven't seen it. I'm really intrigued, but as long as I'm talking on what appears to be a long-range repeater to me, but without location, that Ad Astra movie, I'm like really jammed up for, but anybody know anything about that thing, given my location? KF5, JTC.
Well, excellent. We're glad you're here. Can you give me your call phonetically? I get KF5 question mark Foxtrot Charlie. One more time, please, and can I get your name?
Check. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Tango Charlie. Yeah, that Ad Astra movie that, it's got one of my favorite guys in it, but, yeah, it's a sci-fi movie. I haven't seen it yet. I think it's on theaters, but, yeah, it sounds really cool. It could be just another sci-fi woo-fi, but, anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there, given the response I got there. KF5JTC, back to you.
Okay, very good. Super deal. KF5 JTC, I gotcha. And we did talk about Ad Astra. We actually had a field trip and went to go see it a few weeks ago. I'll tell you what. Let me finish up on the roll call here, and then I'll open it up. And this is actually kind of a semi-formalized net, even though it's 12:20 at night. But let me finish this thing up, and then we'll go ahead and talk about that. So let's see. I've got my final comments here, and then we'll close it out with any final comments on this fine film, Planet of the Vampires. My on the special effects. Here's the deal. I didn't mind the special effects. I really did not. This is 1965, and I'm watching 1965 right now with Lost in Space, and I forget the episode, but it's the third one where they crash land on the planet. They got beautiful set designs and all that. Ivy Melador was also part of Lost in Space, who was a part of this particular movie, Vampires from Planet of the Vampires. He wrote the script, and he helped create kind of the Lost in Space psyche too. So I got a soft spot for him. The effects themselves I thought were nicely done for the time, creating kind of this foggy atmosphere with all the effects that they had. The spaceships themselves were ridiculously large. Didn't make any sense. These tiny hatches and these big, huge expanses. What do they do with all of that? Obviously nothing. That is a mistake they do in science fiction today, and that is make these huge expanses. Let's face it, space is going to be cramped because it's expensive to do that. And that is going to continue to be an issue from this day forward. But cinematographically, the cinematography has to show massive dominance, and that's what they do. Even on Lost in Space, like I'm watching right now, there's tons of wasted space that we're seeing, but it sure looks cool.
W5FC.
This movie also used a lot of lighting, because it was in color, they used reds and greens and blues, all your favorite primary colors to bathe the sets. That was a thing that they did on Star Trek when they didn't have a lot of money to create this, busy work. They used lighting and put light in long hallways, which didn't make any sense even on the Enterprise. They did the same thing in this film, which helped make it visually interesting. And then if you wanted to create a different part of the ship, you went ahead and changed the lighting, and you still had the same thing. So what? It works. It fools you. I'm okay with that. That works for me perfectly fine. So for a movie from 1965, I'm cool with the effects. I'm cool with what they did. And by the way, some of the scenes that you see look exactly like from Alien. Take a look. The look perspective on the massive spaceships, they did that. We know the spaceships are only 2 feet wide in the movie, but in Aliens, they took the thing they made the thing look like it was a massive structure. So what's the difference between that and, say, 2001? I'll only tell you this. When you do scenes where you need depth of perception, and to create something that doesn't look like it's 2 feet wide, or a foot and a half wide, whatever it is, you need to do time exposures. You have to take and do very small pinhole pictures, and then you got to let the camera absorb the light. And the best pictures photography that I have done through the years has involved shots that take 30, 45 seconds to do with nothing moving. And then you get that depth of perception. You get the depth of field. If this film had allowed that, rather than just doing things in real time, it probably would have been much better. I think it would have looked better. But of course, then the effect, props and things have to look good. But I digress. I'll stop now. That is the difference. When you're speeding through and doing things, things don't always look that good. All right, that's it for me this evening. I'll go ahead and take any final check-ins or any final comments. Please come with your call sign.
KC0 USM, Missouri Valley, for a comment.
KG5 BZW, do we have the next movie?
All right, I recognize KC5USM. Brandon, you'll be next, and KC5BZWJ, I do have a movie for you. I gotta put it on the screen. I can't remember what it is. But KC5USM, Brandon, go ahead, and then I'll have next week's movie. So, Brandon, go ahead.
Okay, well, here's what I have as far as comments. I first of all want to talk in regards to the soundtracks thing, because I found it very interesting that you mentioned that one of the things you like to do is take the soundtracks to the movies. And you know, it's always interesting. Now that I'm thinking about it, soundtracks are kind of fun, because and what's really interesting is when you hear the arrangements of the soundtracks after, without all the dialogue, without all the movie stuff. Have you ever noticed, Tom, sometimes those soundtracks sound different? I'll take you a good example, the movie Aladdin. I mean, they're the same soundtrack, but it sounds different because you actually hear the way it was recorded in studio before, essentially, they used it in the movie, if you will, because, of course, all this stuff has to be recorded. All the musical compositions are being dealt with by the musicians, while the editors and the actors are sort of doing their thing, So it's kind of like a organized chaos, effectively amongst the movies. So, if you will, it makes the perfect sense. Now, JJ, I read your message here on Echolink. You said you did some stuff for radio theater. And I think it's even harder to put sounds together for radio theater. Movies is bad enough, but then in radio theater, everything has a sound. So you've got to be so careful that you don't put the wrong sound in there. And I'm sure you can attest to it. I know you don't have a microphone, but you could attest to this. It's very, very difficult. By the way, I have to make a quick observation. Tom, your radio has been the coolest audio I've ever heard out of a radio. I don't know what you're using, but you actually sound like you're part of Mission Control or something in Houston, as opposed to being in Dallas. I don't know if anybody ever brought that to you, but I thought it was kind of neat. Just a quick observation that I thought I would make. And again, I'm a sound buff. Now, for those who don't know, there's multiple reasons behind that. Those who are reading the Echolink chat, refer back to my last message when I explained that some blame it on my blindness, but the fact that I have a low-level form of autism, variant separation, and also, the blindness, all three. So they all kind of combine into one, plus the fact that I process with one side of my brain. So I'm sound-driven. Literally, I don't even go to sleep in silence. So I do disturb the sound of silence by making the sound of loudness. Hi. Back to net, KC0 USM.
All right, Brandon. Well, thank you. I don't know what to say. I don't know how you're processing everything. I'm on an IC 9700, and it's running through a what the heck is this thing? An equalizer. I can't read it anymore. I bought this thing a zillion years ago, and that's how the sound is. And when people told me it sounded okay, I stopped, and I have a tendency to do that because I don't want to mess things up. So if it sounds good to you, I'm happy. Anybody else, you got comments that says it's less than okay, let me know. I go for okay. Let's see. KG5BZWJ, you wanted to know what the next movie is? Here it is. A Dream Come True from 1963. Do I know anything about this film? No. But I'm going to tell you this. For Halloween, which will, for us will be October 26th, that'll be a Saturday, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein will be the film that we'll be watching, and it is available. Both films are free and online. So, next week is A Dream Come True from 1963. I don't remember what it's about. I don't review most of the movies. We've hit all the very best that I can think of, and occasionally throw them back into the mix. But this is one that I've not seen. It's A Dream Come True, 1963. If you want to be on the list, send an email to KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-ray at yahoo.com. Say you want to be on the list, and I'll send you the links to the movie and synopses and all that jazz. Does anybody have any final comments before we close it down? Please come now with your call sign.
KF5JTC, I'm just waiting till you guys are finished with your net stuff, and we can talk about ad ass. So I just want some info on the movie. KF5JTC, KF5 Julio Tango Charlie. Let me know when you're finished with that, so I can just get a kind of an abstract on that movie there. Over.
W5FC.
All right, helpful reminder, we are done. This is KE5ICX, and we're done. We'll see you next week at 10:30 p.m. to talk about the next movie, A Dream Come True. So, this is KE5ICX. I'm closing the net now at, I don't know, what time is it? 0:36 a.m. local time. 7:3, everybody. Congratulations. We have gone... this is the longest net ever for Afterglow movie. So, 7-3, everybody. Have a good evening. Good morning. See you next time. KE5ICX. I'm clear on as net control. All right, KF5JTC, go ahead. You got questions. We got answers, maybe.
Yeah, KF5JTC, I'll copy.
You're coming into the Dallas repeater very nice and clear, and we can tell you that Ad Astra, save your money.
It's got one of my favorite actors in it. I watched him in Fury. Awesome movie. You guys probably covered that on this net, but awesome. Probably one of the best. But the Ad Astra thing, I just thought, man, putting him in a sci-fi and doing a thing, you know, if it's a big budget film, it sounds like it's going to be really great. I haven't seen it. Please, no spoilers, but I'm just looking for an abstract. KF5JTC.
Well, I'll give you my impression of it, because I sat through the thing in the theater, and it's about... It wouldn't be too bad for about an hour and 15 minutes long. Unfortunately, it's 2 hours long, and if it hadn't been for the caffeine gum, I would have fallen asleep in the middle of it. It's billed as a cutting-edge space flick, but all of the science is wrong. They paid no attention to actual real-world physics, and basically, it's a guy with daddy issues that's trying to resolve them, and it's set in space. And that's pretty much the movie. So even though you like Brad Pitt, and there are about 30 minutes of close-ups of his face in that movie, And you can spend all the time while you're waiting for something interesting to happen counting the stubble on his chin, because they're that close, especially on the IMAX that we watched it on. But really, I'd recommend saving your money, because it's not a good film at all.
I copy that. Yeah, that factors into my money factor and time factor. And sleep factor, because, I got real serious narcolepsy problems. I don't know what it is with me and movies, but I can go to a movie I love, and then, I might get kicked out for snoring. But, like you said, if it's got some slow parts, I'm probably going to need a little extra Adderall to get through that baby.
Need a lot, because it was slow and boring. There were moments of excitement and moments of, why is this still going on? But, you've been warned. WT9V.
Oh, there's lots of moments of, why is this going on?
Like I said, I'm kind of doing a comparison between Fury, which was action-packed and super realistic, and then I was projecting that to the, what would be like an ultimate sci-fi, kind of like Interstellar or something. Kind of getting out there, a little technical stuff. 2 weeks ago I went down to the Kima Boardwalk, and then I did the whole Johnson Space Center thing, looking at the Apollo mission control and the Skylab mission control, and then the ISS, training facility. Yeah, I'm really kind of into that stuff. It's part of my bucket list. My wife let me go down there with her. We had a great time. Anyway, but and of course Pitt was phenomenal in Fury. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I don't want to mix movies, but bad ass. Yeah, I do like a lot of theory and a little technical stuff there. I do understand. My daughter had to teach me a little bit about movie logic, not to get too realistic or technical about it. But and I got to give her that. She's right. There's a movie logic out there that it exceeds my expectations always. But I just thought it might be something really cool, really technical. It might have some like brain sweeping stuff in it, but based on your synopsis, it sounds like another doohickey off a hootenanny kind of movie. Might have some parts. I'm sure I would enjoy it. But like I said, I have this weird thing about theaters. I can't sleep at night. And when I get inside a movie I really want to watch, like you said, if it gets slow, I'm going to be snoring, and, that's not a good thing. KF5, Juliet, Tango, Charlie. You guys are all the way in Dallas. That's the reason I could tell a big difference between the sound I was getting off you guys and the 33 repeater I'm used to listening to there. Over.
I'll say that one of the comments that I made when we reviewed this film a few weeks ago was that there's a book, I'm sure, somewhere in Hollywood, of science and physics, and it's a reference book for filmmakers to use so that their films are somewhat realistic. And the producers, and God, there were a lot of producers on Ad Astra. It was like page after page after page of producers during the credits. It was like they should have had less producers and more writers, or maybe a director, I don't know. But they took this book of physics and technology and, you know, how to do things so that people didn't roll their eyes while watching the film, and they used it to prop up the leg of a wobbly table. That's how much science and accuracy was in Ad Astra.
Yeah, we copy your table there. Yeah, I gotta have a little realism there, a little theorism there, and maybe even a little advanced theorism there that can stretch my imagination. But yeah, if it's a straight up kind of down to earth, I don't know if you could say story. They're all stories. I don't like that, but I do like a little technicality on my stuff. Like I said, that's why I wouldn't go down to the Johnson Space Center every time I get a chance. But yeah, I like a little realism in my stuff, or at least a little weird theory like Interstellar with the horizon and the black hole thing and the time continuum stuff. That really kept me going. And it really screwed with my mind a little bit, and I like that. But I kind of anticipated that with this movie. Because Pitt can be a good actor when he's got a good script and a good screenplay and a good director. But yeah, I might not go all in on something like that, but I'll watch it. Without a doubt, I'll see it. But anyway, I do appreciate the abstract there, over.
If you can pick us up from Mansfield on a Saturday night, do join in. Send a note to Tom or get on Facebook and look up this next movie and watch it and participate next week. And you know, you're coming in really well at this point. I don't know if it's just atmospheric conditions or you can normally pick up this repeater this well, but you're doing a great job getting in.
I got the cheapest antenna comet cells. I got a dual band, about a meter long, 440, 70 centimeter antenna, up about 15 feet. Of course, we do have a little more altitude out here on the top of the summit over here, as they call it. But I could crank that thing up about another 20 or 30 foot. It's just a question of getting out there and jacking with the pole. But yeah, I could tell you guys we're a little bit different than the Arlington repeater that I've been banging off of. But yeah, I've never had a problem with this Kenwood running at 50 watts, and it does do a good job. You guys sounded a little sharp, so I could tell there's a difference. But Dallas, that makes sense. It really makes sense. But yeah, what an interesting network, and a really good topic there, over.
Well, if anything, we're sharp. WT9V. Cut himself yesterday somehow, rubbing his hands together. WT9V.
Yeah, check. Yeah, I did need to get a little bit higher up. I probably could actually invest in a better antenna. I think that thing was $30 or $40, but